Chapter 170. The universe within the tank. Su Feihong's weapon, Ding Ding, rested on the tank, instilling fear in the nearby zombies, who cowered and retreated. With the Jiaoren now in Su Feihong's possession, Lin Xiaodong was left armed solely with his hands and the claw blades. However, with Su Feihong and Ding Ding providing protection overhead, he felt sufficiently equipped. He politely rapped twice on the tank's hatch, genuinely believing that after being trapped for 15 days, it was improbable that any living souls remained inside. Unless the occupants resorted to cannibalism, how could they survive for so long? To his utter astonishment, a voice emerged from within the tank, inquiring, "Who?" One absurd response this was. Would a zombie knock on the door or respond? What was he supposed to say? Traveler, or perhaps give his full name? Irritated, he bellowed, "Cut the nonsense. I'm merely passing by and intend to rescue you. Are you coming or not? If not, I'll be on my way, and you lot can await your fate as zombies." Before he could knock again, the heavy hatch creaked open, and a figure clad in a tank cap peeked out. Upon spotting Ding Ding atop the tank, the individual recoiled with a startled exclamation. In their haste, they neglected to close the hatch, further inciting Lin Xiaodong's ire. Leaning into the tank, he shouted, "Are you all daft?" Instead of fleeing from zombies, why not notice the living outside? That young man can control the undead. Haven't you heard that we have someone capable of such feats? Realizing his own appearance might not convincingly assert his humanity, he continued. Just then, the tank-capped individual re-emerged, gripping Lin Xiaodong's sleeve. Do you have food? Something suitable for children? My child needs milk powder." The situation became clear. There were no noble warriors liberating the city, merely desperate parents seeking milk powder for their child. The media's portrayal of the situation had skewed public perception, a disservice indeed. Yet, one could only imagine the tribulations of raising a child in a post-apocalyptic world. "Not a problem, just wait," Lin Xiaodong replied curtly, without further explanation, as he called through the radio, "Meyer, bring over a small bag of milk powder. Enough for 2 meals. Boss, they've never had a child. How would they know how much a meal consists of? Have you never seen a pig run? Just grab a lump the size of your fist and have it sent over quickly." With that, he leaped into the tank's hatch, exclaiming, "You must be out of your minds, charging into the city for milk powder. Doesn't your wife produce milk? Is Hansen deceiving us? Where can we possibly find milk powder now? They come from outside the city. If they had milk powder upon entering," Lin Xiaodong was taken aback to find that the interior of the tank resembled a makeshift nursery. It wasn't that there were many children, but rather the place was strewn with diapers, and there was even a stove fashioned from a stainless steel basin with a fire burning inside. At the far end sat a weary woman cradling a feeble child in her arms, fortunate to possess a fully enclosed helmet. Lin Xiaodong glanced at the tank brimming with diapers, surmising that the odor within must be unbearable. "Where did you find this tank?" he inquired. Just as Lin was posing his question, a flicker of green light appeared at the hatch, and a figure emerged, grinning widely, theatrically accompanied by a sound of dede as if heralding his entrance. A woman clutching a baby brightened at the sight, anxiously extending her hand. Without a moment's thought, the man donned in a tank helmet drew a gun, pressing it against Lin Xiaodong's chest. "How much formula do you have? Hand it over." Seeing this scenario unfold, Lin realized he could not intimidate this individual and felt compelled to eliminate him. With a decisive motion, he forced the man's finger on the trigger, causing the gun to discharge against his own body. Enduring the pain, he pounded his fist against his chest, asserting, "I am impervious to blades and bullets. Do you dare to challenge me, you foolish pig, for attempting to steal my formula?" The more he spoke, the angrier he became, incensed by situations akin to being wronged. Utilizing his extraordinary strength, he pinned the man against the tank wall, the glinting edge of his claw-like fingers poised menacingly against the man's face. "I possess enough formula to nourish your child daily until the age of 100. Do you still desire it, you wretched creature?" With that, he raised his fist, intending to strike down this ungrateful man. "Please, spare him, sir," the woman implored, collapsing to the ground in tears. "My husband is a scoundrel, but for the sake of the child, I beg you to let him live. Don't let him grow up without a father." The man, who found himself at the mercy of Lin's deadly grip, offered a sorrowful smile. "Brother, I apologize. I have no choice. I cannot bear to see my child starve. This response only elicited a cold laugh from Lin Xiaodong. Have you ever considered, what if I had a child? Just then, a voice crackled through his earpiece. What is the matter, boss? Do you want a child? She willing. Annoyed, Lin retorted, get lost. After silencing the trembling man, Lin felt he could not let this individual off lightly and opted to initiate forced recruitment through the system. The two tank crew members were named Hansen and Jerry. Thankfully, they were not Shook and Beta. It seemed this fellow was indeed a tank soldier, versatile in driving, firing, and maintenance, not lacking in skill. Recognizing the utility of such individuals, Lin refrained from executing them, as they were not inherently malevolent. He then pressed the claw-like edge against the woman's face, effectively capturing her. Upon forced recruitment, the system revealed her name as Jerry, surprisingly an infantry soldier and an elite ranger. What infuriated Lin the most was the system's audacity to annotate behind the woman's name. In lactation period, according to regulations. To hell with your regulations. We are in a post-apocalyptic world, and you speak of lactation periods? Should I grant them maternity leave as well? His gaze fell upon a stainless steel cup by the fire, and he decisively handed it to the male soldier, instructing, take this, clean it, and fill it with rainwater. Yes, sir. As the male soldiers seamlessly embraced their roles, Lin Xiaodong turned his gaze towards the recently hired woman. Despite cradling a child in her arms, she saluted him with utmost seriousness, addressing him as sir. However, observing Jerry's unwavering attachment to the child, it seemed implausible that he could assume the role of an instructor while in the throes of parenthood. Such is the caprice of fate and a malfunctioning system, which never fails to conspire against one. Well then, how is the tank? Is it operational? Report, sir. The tracks are damaged, but we have yet to assess the situation outside. Upon hearing of the damaged tracks, Lin Xiaodong felt a wave of despair wash over him. Do we have any spare track segments? Report, we do not. We did not anticipate that the overweight zombie would obliterate a substantial portion of the tracks. At that moment, drenched to the skin, Hansen entered with a large cup filled with rainwater. Lin Xiaodong took the cup and placed it atop the diesel stove, then inquired again. Can the tank still move? Is there sufficient fuel? Report, we can still travel approximately 10 kilometers, but the tracks are indeed broken. Chapter 71. The Clash of Kings. When Lin Xiaodong proposed the idea of attempting to create a segment of a track using carbon fiber, he did so with a hint of uncertainty, yet he felt compelled to explore the possibility. Otherwise, they would have no choice but to wait for the weather to clear and utilize dust bombs to forge a path. Carbon fiber, you mean currency, right? Of course, that is feasible as long as we wrap a layer around the track. Unfortunately, we lack adhesive and the necessary funds, he remarked. As he spoke, the rainwater in the stainless steel cup began to gently bubble. Jerry, in turn, procured a spoon and added 2 scoops of milk powder, frequently glancing at the remaining quantity in the bag. After finishing, he earnestly handed the small plastic bag to Lin Xiaodong. Commander, keep it. We have enough milk powder for this child to last until 18, he asserted. This statement sparked a sudden realization in Lin Xiaodong's mind. He recalled the numerous large trucks transporting milk powder on the highway, as well as the freight trains that could not be overlooked if an opportunity arose. Noticing the disbelief in the couple's expressions, Lin Xiaodong explained, this afternoon, we used only a few dozen kilograms of milk powder to create a spectacular dust bomb. At this, the couple exchanged glances filled with a profound sense of happiness. In this apocalyptic world, joy appeared to come so effortlessly. Reflecting on their gazes, Lin Xiaodong couldn't help but think of Melanie and wondered when he might see that little saint again. All right, now the tank is a combat unit. You should feed the child, and once done, head to the back of the vehicle. There are more people there, and it's warmer with a stove, he instructed, turning to face Hansen. I will provide you with personnel, as well as funds and adhesive to prepare for the track repairs, with arrangements for the child in place. And as Hansen was a conscripted soldier, he promptly complied without protest. Afterward, Lin Xiaodong inspected the ammunition within the tank. Not only was there an ample supply of artillery shells, but the rounds for both the coaxial machine gun and the anti-aircraft gun remained untouched. Given the reduced number of people in the tank, It was understandable that they had not breached a residential area with a machine gun and cannon fire. Emerging from the tank, Lin Xiaodong left behind a pile of currency and peered at the sky from beneath Ding Ding's belly. The rain seemed to have lessened, and he considered whether it might be prudent to relocate to a nearby residential building. This area, being close to the city's edge, would facilitate easier access in and out of the city. However, he quickly dismissed this thought. In the apocalypse, humans could be more malevolent than zombies. Reflecting on Hansen's recent behavior, he felt a pang in his chest. Thankfully, he had been armed with a 9mm pistol, and the shot had struck at an angle. Otherwise, it would be best to find a location in the heart of the city. At that point, I could have Tree Branch expand its trunk, ideally extending to the height of a high-rise, possibly forming a bridge between the buildings. If that were the case, should the outside world be obstructed by zombies, it would be advantageous to capture some survivors for forced labor. It seemed imperative to invest substantial effort into developing flying vehicles. With these thoughts occupying his mind, he set aside the idea of relocating and devoted himself wholeheartedly to repairing the tank's track. Mill, summon Lin Siwei down here. His assistance is required. On it. In response to Lin Xiaodong's command, Meyer consistently executed her orders with remarkable swiftness. She emerged from the cockpit and opened the door leading to the upper compartment, from which a wave of heat billowed forth. Lin Siwei, come out, the boss calls for you. Oh no, I won't go out. There's zombies everywhere. Lin Siwei, who was not an employee, displayed a clear reluctance to undertake such a perilous task. Are you coming out or not? If you don't, I'll toss you to that coward Ding Ding to deal with. Upon hearing Meyer's voice, Lin Xiaodong shook his head. It was perplexing how a woman, so alluring and hailing from a background as an anesthetist, seemed to have fully embraced her freedom in this post-apocalyptic world. Then, Lin Xiaodong witnessed a comical scene unfold. Lin Siwei was being pulled by the ear out of the compartment by Meyer. The enthusiastic dogs that had rushed out to play were hastily shooed back inside by Meyer, who exclaimed, "Those inside are all dead. Get those troublesome little critters back in here." Lin Siwei, dragged out by his ear, tumbled down from the vehicle, and Lin Xiaodong paid him no mind. Such disobedience warranted some hardship. After a struggle, the mechanic Lin Siwei managed to rise, carefully assessing the extent of the tank's damaged tracks. Contemplating Lin Xiaodong's proposed repair plan, he mused, as long as there is sufficient thickness, there should be no issue with the tensile strength. If feasible, we could create a mold based on the original tracks. Lin Xiaodong, however, was not inclined to listen further. This was hardly the moment for meticulous operations. At that moment, a sudden commotion erupted among the densely clustered zombies, akin to wheat swaying in the wind, as something surged through the throng. Regardless of whether others could discern it, Lin Xiaodong observed clearly, "Attention, it is another level 3 liquor." Upon hearing Lin Xiaodong's words, Meyer leaped from the vehicle and hastened to the tank, peering into the distance. The high-definition night vision in her helmet provided a crystal-clear view. "Boss, judging by its speed, it either intends to fight Ding Ding for supremacy or seeks to become his mate. Which possibility do you think it is?" she inquired, her gaze laden with a hint of flirtation directed at Lin Xiaodong. Regrettably, the helmet obscured his view, and he merely responded with a nonchalant inquiry. "So, are you interested in a royal duel at the tank?" Meyer, striking a pose and swaying her hips, replied somewhat bashfully, "Boss, you wouldn't have ulterior motives, would you? If that saintly girl didn't catch your eye and you see the liquor wanting to, well, you and also desire to." At this juncture, she turned and leapt into the tank, her round rear end playfully accentuated. "Rascal!" Su Feihong, perched atop Ding Ding and wielding a blade, couldn't help but mutter under her breath, prompting Meyer's teeth-clenching voice to crackle through the radio. "You cowardly brat, I can't hear you. Just wait until we return to the boss's place. I will concoct some poison to deal with you." Both Lin Xiaodong and Su Feihong felt a chill race down their spines upon hearing her words. In stark contrast, upon hearing about the level 3 liquor, Lin Siwei scrambled up the vehicle and dove into the compartment, slamming the door shut with a resounding thud. His swift actions drew hearty laughter from Lin Xiaodong and the others. As for the distant level 3 liquors charging towards them, none of the three took it seriously. Su Feihong was about to urge Ding Ding to advance, hoping to explore the legendary combat techniques of ancient generals engaging in cavalry duels. However, Lin Xiaodong's remark as he climbed into the tank dampened his spirits considerably. "Don't rush. Let me try the machine gun. Perhaps a few shots will suffice, and you won't be needed." Watching Lin Xiaodong disappear into the tank, Su Feihong rolled his eyes in annoyance, forming silent words with his thin lips. "A few shots? I fear you might not only provoke the liquor, but also make the secretary scream." However, he dared not voice this thought, knowing that if Lin Xiaodong and Meyer heard him, it would surely lead to his demise, not just at the hands of Meyer, but others as well. Chapter 172. Is Meyer firing? Upon hearing Lin Xiaodong's inquiry, Meyer's body softened, and she nearly collapsed onto him. "Are you out of your mind? Firing? Can't you comprehend that?" Observing Lin Xiaodong incessantly tapping on the imposing cannon of the tank, Meyer twisted her neck, huffing. "You know very well what firing refers to. If you continue to tease your secretary, she might just take it seriously." Her malicious intent was laid bare, yet Lin Xiaodong remained unfazed, urging, "Hurry up. If you wish to fire, aim for the target." A level 3 liquor can barely survive being hit by a 120mm shell. That's enough to boast about. To be frank, it was uncertain how other tanks operated, but this particular one boasted a remarkably high level of automation. It featured automatic scanning and targeting of the greatest threats, with only the firing button under the control of the gunner. As the officer brought Meyer inside to engage with the cannon, Hansen chose to act deaf, feigning ignorance of the proceedings. He merely inquired of Lin Xiaodong, "Sir, shall we use high-explosive shells or armor-piercing rounds?" "Armor-piercing, my foot. With a body as fragile as that of a level 3 liquor, it doesn't require armor-piercing rounds. Even high-explosive shells would obliterate it." As Meyer toyed with the cannon, Lin Xiaodong's thoughts remained a mystery. He settled into the driver's seat, contemplating the tank's controls. He learned that the sniper's specialized combat training came from the Empire. While he could navigate the tank's mechanics, he had never driven one before. Just as he was engrossed in exploration, the tank suddenly jolted violently, followed by a thunderous roar reverberating throughout the vehicle, permeating the air with an acrid smell of gunpowder. However, the smoke extraction system swiftly replaced the air within the turret. From the outside, a brilliant burst of flame erupted from the long cannon's muzzle. Not only did the tank react, but the nearby surfaces, ground, armor, and buildings seemed to dance as raindrops leapt into the air. The sound of shattering glass from the surrounding structures echoed, a result of the deafening noise generated by the 120mm cannon firing, scattering shards everywhere. In the distance, the high-explosive shell detonated in a massive orange fireball, unleashing an onslaught of spherical projectiles that mercilessly obliterated nearly all zombies within 30 meters. Every type of undead in the vicinity was reduced to mere remnants beneath the barrage. Poor Lulu, perched on Lin Xiaodong's shoulder, was violently jolted and tumbled off. When it managed to climb back up, its large eyes spun comically in dizzy circles, entangled in a mess of black lines. "Meyer, you silly girl. How could you miss firing at such close range?" Slightly dazed from the impact, Meyer giggled within her sealed helmet, her voice dripping with allure as she exclaimed, "Boss, the sensation of firing is truly exhilarating. I really want to fire again." At this moment, even Lin Xiaodong found himself perplexed by whether her words referred to this firing or another kind altogether. The unfortunate Hansen, trapped in his predicament, could not discern whether they were flirting or exchanging fire. Resignedly, he operated the loading mechanism, placing another explosive shell atop. "Meyer, should you misfire again, you might as well return home to tend to your children." Upon hearing Lin Xiaodong's taunt, Meyer remained unfazed. "Very well. I await the day you plant one. And when you have a litter of little rabbits, you can go home and nurse them." Ah, the quality of women from Dongkong Republic is indeed remarkable. Unlike that fellow who adheres to the 3 no's: no marriage, no children, no property, living day by day. As her words faded, the tank trembled violently once more, launching a shell that soared far into the distance, landing squarely in the middle of the road. This time, Meyer hit the mark precisely, raising her arms in triumph. "Huh! The Tier 3 devourers are mere chaff, against my heavy artillery. At that moment, Lulu, having painstakingly climbed back onto Lin Chaodong's shoulder, had eyes swirling with confusion and glistening with tears. All right, it's over now. That madwoman has ceased her bombardment. Let us return home. With a firm press of the accelerator, the tank's engine roared to life, gradually gaining speed. Like a rampaging bull, it barreled into the horde of zombies, crushing more and more beneath its treads, including the rotund, egg-like creatures that emitted sounds akin to bursting fish bladders as they were ground underfoot. However, this time, the corpses posed no threat to the tank's treads, though the armor was being corroded by the splattered remains. Yet, the corrosion resistance of armored steel was evidently superior to that of ordinary iron, and its thickness would withstand such degradation for quite some time. Meanwhile, Su Feihong, who had been lying on the tank, had grown bored and returned inside, watching the tank charge into the zombie throng, reflecting on the earlier conversation about bombardments. Quietly, she mused what a pair of rascals, one relishes in bombardments, while the other in reckless driving. As the tank surged forward, Lin Chaodong, gazing at the blurred streets on the screen, pondered the folly of attempting to dominate humanity through zombies or supernatural abilities. Such aspirations were patently juvenile. For ruling humanity was not merely about enduring a few shells. The crux lay in possessing the capacity to withstand nuclear strikes. With this thought in mind, he abruptly inquired of Hansen, the specialist. Hansen, given the occurrence of a widespread biochemical crisis, why have we not observed the government deploying nuclear weapons in the wilderness? While it is clear why cities are spared, what is the rationale for avoiding the wilds as well? This was a grave concern that occasionally crossed Lin Chaodong's mind. If the Donkong Republic were truly intent on eradicating zombies, they could simply unleash 100 hydrogen bombs. This would not only clear away the majority of zombies, but would also result in minimal contamination. Within a year, or at most 3 to 5, the environment would return to its original state. If initially the Donkong Republic hesitated to sacrifice cities, the pressing question remained: would they utilize such weapons now or in the future? Nuclear weapons? What sort of armament is that? I have never heard of it. Damn it, he thought. How can a soldier on this planet be unaware of nuclear bombs? Is this possible? With a profound sense of doubt, Lin Chaodong turned to Meyer and inquired, Meyer, does your hospital not have a radiology department? Indeed, we do. Why do you ask? I fondly recall my colleagues at the hospital. If only it were possible. The topic, which had initially seemed quite engaging, took a swift turn in Meyer's words. Lin Chaodong, undeterred, opened the channel to everyone, asking, has anyone heard of a weapon known as a nuclear bomb? As silence enveloped the group, two voices emerged from the channel, one belonging to Curly Davis and the other to materials researcher Meng Ying. I have heard of it. There were claims that a powerful superweapon could be created through nuclear fission, but alas, no further information surfaced. This was Davis, well-versed in the history of scientific development and familiar with many rumors. There were proposals made in the past regarding the use of uranium-235 to create a fission reactor capable of generating immense energy for consumption. Indeed, with a reactor, the advent of nuclear bombs would be imminent. And then? Lin Chaodong pressed impatiently. What then? Then there was nothing more, Davis replied. The article has been published for over a century, yet no successful explorations have been undertaken in this direction. That is indeed perplexing. With the advancement of technology to this extent, it is astonishing that nuclear energy and weapons have not emerged. Given the technological capabilities of the Donkong Republic, this should not be the case. Chapter 173. They are heading to the city center finally, after the rain has ceased and the clouds have dispersed. The night sky is exceptionally clear. Two moons, one gray and one yellow, emerge from behind the heavy veil of clouds, much like a reluctant maiden revealing her visage. The incessant broadcast, audible to anyone with an implanted phone, continues its relentless chatter. This is the voice of the Apocalypse radio station. I am your familiar announcer, Joe Ko. I am Joe Ko. Arthur has retired to bed after playing that lovely piece of music, hoping it soothes your heart in the aftermath of the cataclysm. Perhaps influenced by Su Feihong, Meyer is also tuned into the implanted phone broadcast. Now, we bring you the latest updates on the expedition team that has breached On City, now bolstered by necromancers. The speaker's words seem entirely fabricated, a product of wild imagination. Open your eyes wide. I'm an adventurer? I'm a resident of this city, all right? One must admit that this expedition team is exceptionally well prepared. They likely have mechanics on board, and it is quite probable that the tank is being driven by a tank commander who was previously trapped inside. All those who worried for the heroic tank operators can now breathe easy. Heroic tank operators? Oomph. Do you know that fellow attempted to rob me with a gun? It is only because I was well equipped that. Listening to the broadcaster's commentary, Lin Chaodong floors the accelerator. The roar of the tank's engine resembles an enraged beast bellowing as it careens through the city with its massive, weighty frame. Weighing 70 tons, the tank at full speed is unstoppable by any zombie. Wow, that is truly impressive. They're actually capable of repairing damaged tanks. Oh, now the expedition team is driving the tank, racing through a horde of zombies. Indeed, in his haste to return home, Lin Chaodong drives the tank at breakneck speed. Indifferent to the zombies, every one of them is crushed beneath the treads. Zombies filled with pressurized viscera pop beneath the tank, exploding like firecrackers. Behind the tank, two broad black tire tracks form, wider than those left by the following trucks, causing the vehicle to sway slightly as it traverses the terrain. When encountering turns, the massive tank resembles a monstrous creature, sliding across the icy ground due to its excessive speed. As it drifts in a manner akin to a sports car, the heavy rear of the vehicle sends everything upright flying. Furthermore, Lin Chaodong does not follow a straight path, resulting in a thick, viscous road of zombie fluid where the tank and trucks have passed. Indeed, due to their slaughter of countless zombies, it seems other vehicles will struggle to navigate this path in the future. When the viscera is moist, it is soft and sticky, more troublesome than glue. At this juncture, the announcer appears to be rummaging through a pile of papers, and he continues, "Oh, found it. Survivors, the black viscera of zombies can be utilized as glue. If you require glue for crafting protective gear or weapons, rest assured you may use the zombie fluid, as long as it dries thoroughly." No wonder people listen to this broadcast. It seems that beyond the frivolity, there are also useful tidbits to be shared. In this moment, Lin Chaodong, eager to return home, paid no heed to such matters. How to exit the city would undoubtedly be a concern for another time. Shu Yatu. Shu Yatu, I have returned. He called out to Shu Yatu in his mind, filled with sincere longing. Were it not for her arm and foot, he would never have had the means to glide with a makeshift flying machine. Moreover, that mischievous girl who had accessed his memories had always utilized his wife's voice, and her temperament bore a slight resemblance as well. However, Lin Chaodong was taken aback by the complete absence of any response. This was impossible. Shu Yata feasted on zombies and feared little beyond the spitting creatures. She could not have come to harm. While reassuring himself, Lin Chaodong glanced at the electronic maps navigation within his helmet. He was not far from his neighborhood. Yet why had the connection with Shu Yatu not been restored? This thought stirred a sense of anxiety within him, and he called out repeatedly in his mind, yet received no reply. In contrast, the incessant chatter of the broadcaster continued. My heavens, they are nearing the city center? I can hardly believe that an expedition team has reached the heart of the city. It seems they are heading toward a particular neighborhood. Could their former home be there? The detailed tracking of their journey left Lin Chaodong perplexed. Could those individuals be monitoring them with a drone? Pondering this, he activated the vehicle's anti-aircraft radar. However, it showed no signs of aerial objects. Feeling somewhat uneasy, he released his small drone. The individuals within the tank released a drone as well. Were they searching for something? If they could see his drone, then it must not be far away. At that moment, the anti-aircraft radar signaled the presence of Lin Chaodong's drone, and it automatically connected the visuals to the display within his helmet. This indicated that the radar's traffic was exceptional. Unless the broadcaster's drone was cloaked or they were utilizing satellites, the current scenario was implausible. An intriguing broadcasting station. Perhaps one day he would visit them. Boss, why the sudden interest in the broadcasting station? Meyer's inquiry revealed she had discerned Lin Chaodong's intent behind releasing the drone. Mita, don't you find it rather unpleasant to be under constant surveillance? What if we were to undertake something and someone broadcasted every detail live? This question struck a chord with Meyer, who immediately retorted, "If they dare invade my privacy, then I shall." Mid-sentence, sensing Lin Chaodong's peculiar gaze, she abruptly shifted from her fierce demeanor to a more alluring tone, asking, "Boss, do you mean to imply that I don't oppose your intentions regarding the secretary role?" Ahem. Meyer, you're a secretary, not a secret affair, right? Evidently, Mi-Er comprehended the situation. Indulging in a play on words, perhaps? Which honey does the character refer to in Mishu? Let me take a wild guess. In response, Lin Chaodong chose to remain silent, maneuvering his tank swiftly toward his residential compound. At last, he had returned home. Reflecting on the experiences of the past few days, he pondered on the cargo he had transported. It felt surreal, almost like a dream. The sole aspect that stirred his unease was the absence of the tree girl. His tank had reached the entrance of the community, yet she remained unresponsive. Increasingly anxious, Lin Chaodong feared. Was there an incident at home? Had other survivors arrived, or perhaps? It was impossible. The tree girl would certainly have feasted on the zombies, ensuring they could not ascend the floors. Suddenly, a dreadful thought struck him. Could there be some colossal creature resembling a giant anaconda lurking within the community? Chapter 174. The Sulking Tree Girl Thud. Crash. The imposing gates of the community crumbled under the impact of the 70-ton tank, the pillars collapsing like dominoes into a heap of debris. The gates reduced to mere strips of iron by the tank's treads. Wherever the tracks passed, bricks and tiles disintegrated into dust. Following closely behind, a heavy truck roared into the vicinity, with Lin Chaodong driving the tank relentlessly toward his building. Behind them trailed a relentless horde of zombies. Undeterred by the terror of Ding Ding or the might of the tank, they instinctively pursued their prey, guided by sound. Amidst the various zombies and mutant creatures, there were also small black specks, zombie rats. It was only when Lin Chaodong caught sight of the tree girl that he noticed her formidable limbs, coiled like dung, remaining motionless. A thick layer of solid ice had formed over the corpse of the underground anaconda, and several wooden limbs resembling pipes led into the building's entrance. Everything appeared tranquil and reassuring. Yet why, oh why, did the tree girl remain silent? "Drive," he called out to the tank crew, and climbed atop the tank, shouting back, "Sue, get out. Hand me the knife. Everyone else stay in the vehicle for now." Upon hearing Lin Chaodong's call, Su Feihong hurriedly emerged from the truck, his gaze locking onto the massive red limbs that seemed to awaken, rising slowly from their dung-like form. In that moment, Lin Chaodong was evidently within striking distance of the creature. Assuming Lin Chaodong was oblivious, Su Feihong stammered, pointing at the slowly rising limbs. Boss, fire, fire, fire. The flame snake tree. Give me the knife. This flame snake tree is my own." With his plan weighing heavily on his mind, Lin Chaodong felt he had no time to squander. Although returning home should mean a return to a tranquil life, fighting zombies and scavenging for supplies, it was imperative to find a housekeeping robot to alleviate the burden of cooking for a bunch of gluttons amidst his own busy schedule. Amidst Su Feihong's astonished gaze, the towering flame snake tree, with its 30-meter red limbs, rose majestically, bending like a sauropod to reveal its six-petaled maw, gaping wide toward Lin Chaodong. Even at this moment, he could see the main cannon of the tank slowly shifting. "Meyer, do not be overly sensitive. I have mentioned that this is a self-tree." The cannon came to a halt with a creak as Meyer emerged from the tank, seemingly unwavering in her belief of Lin Chaodong's words. Under Su Feihong's anxious gaze, that vivid, razor-toothed maw indeed accelerated suddenly as it approached Lin Chaodong, engulfing him entirely. Su Feihong sighed inwardly, thinking, "It's over. The boss has been astute for a lifetime, and in one foolish moment, he has been fed to the tree." Meyer was evidently startled by the movements of the flame serpent tree, raising her assault rifle, ready to fire. "Don't shoot, I'm fine," Lin Chaodong shouted into the channel, simultaneously negotiating with the tree in his mind. "What the hell is wrong with you? We haven't seen each other for a few days, and you create a commotion right away. I know you're a self-tree, but those people do not. Do you see that massive iron weight? A single shot could turn you to dust." Upon hearing his threatening words, the tree, which had remained silent, could no longer contain itself. "If I knew it. You have been wanting to burn someone to a crisp all along. to blow them up, to blow them up. If you don't blow them up, you're just a little dog. No matter how much you bark, they won't pay you any mind. The familiar choice of words and tone nearly prompted Lin Chaodong to bark a couple of times himself. After all, she was his wife. Who else would care for her if he did not? However, he quickly regained his composure. I say, tree, why are you so furious? Do you not remember that you are a tree, not experiencing a midlife crisis? Even if you've absorbed my wife's memories, must you adopt her unreasonable temper? It seemed that only then did the flame serpent tree remember its true nature. After all, it was a plant. Human emotions did not pertain to it. Have you eaten? I haven't slept well these past few days, feeling a bit dazed. I'm going to sleep now. Immediately, the tree's presence vanished from his mind, and no matter how much Lin Chaodong shouted in his thoughts, it remained indifferent. Moreover, it irresponsibly released its six-petaled maw, causing Lin Chaodong to fall from a height of 10 meters. Fortunate enough to possess the skills of a clumsy sniper, he knew to land with his legs together. With a swoosh, the leopard claw boots propelled him back into the air. A tentacle with a six-petaled mouth caught him mid-fall, allowing him to settle securely. And everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. Just as this series of events left everyone dumbfounded, Lin Chaodong waved his hand, instructing to drive the vehicle down to unload. The tentacle would assist us in reaching the 10th floor, but once there, everyone would need to take the elevator to our warehouse. All right, let us get moving. Look, it truly is our home. The disheveled researcher Meng Ying turned and shouted as she opened the door. Subsequently, a stream of untidy individuals emerged, gazing at the building with inexplicable joy. But then, the nightmare began. First to descend was Lilith, followed by 8 Siberian Huskies, who immediately caught the scent of the zombies accumulating beneath the flame serpent tree. One by one, they leaped from the vehicle in a frenzy, their frantic screams echoing as they tumbled to the ground, racing towards the pile of undead remains. There was no denying that dogs had an affinity for gnawing on bones. However, Lin Chaodong suddenly recalled a pressing matter. He shouted in his mind at the girl, urging her to swiftly collect the claws of those zombie cats, lest they be devoured by the little dogs. He had intended to use those claws to craft leopard paw boots for Mir and Su Feihong. And if a horde of puppies indiscriminately gnawed them away, he would be at a loss as to whom to lament. Among the 8 soldiers, one was maneuvering the truck to turn around, just as the zombies, drawn by the commotion of the convoy, surged into the community. This development heightened Lin Chaodong's anxiety. He pondered the sheer number of zombies that might be approaching. His irritation grew as he observed several bewildered researchers standing idly. He waved his arms and shouted, "Stop standing there like fools. Head into the building, quickly. Su Feihong, take your steed and only slay the spitters. Pay no attention to the other zombies. Tree girl Lilith, protect those pups." Grabbing his sniper rifle, he called out, "Those with firearms, target only the spitters. Remember, only the spitters." At that moment, Su Feihong had already mounted his steed, charging into the throng of zombies after a long roar from a Tier 3 licker. Mir directed the reverse, positioning the tank and cargo truck amidst the tentacled foes. "Boss, there are countless zombies, thousands, I can't hold them back." And hearing Su Feihong's urgent cries, Lin Chaodong shouted over the communication channel, "Who said to hold them back? Just eliminate the spitters, your armor." Reflecting on the standard armor, he realized it would offer little protection against the acidic bile of the spitters. As long as nothing like biomice or zombie rats burrowed inside, there would be no significant issue. Mir, who held a disdain for weaklings, coldly remarked, "Only kill the spitters. If you feel scared, just return." Truly useless coward. What a joke. This hero would fear mere zombies. After all, he was riding a Tier 3 licker. Chapter 175. The rat plague. The prowess of the tree girl is indeed formidable. Observing the current situation, Lin Chaodong sincerely lavished praise upon her. "Stop flattering. She is not your servant," he thought to himself. Yet, he couldn't help but marvel at how she had managed to bring back. The anger of the tree girl still lingered in his mind, although her tendrils were already in motion. It must be acknowledged that her strength was astonishing. With just a few of her tendrils, she effortlessly lifted tanks and heavy trucks into the protective area, where her tendrils began to diligently harvest the zombies. Fortunately, Su Feihong rode ahead on Ding Ding, ensuring that only a few of the jetting monsters slipped through. This allowed the tendrils to perform their tasks without hindrance and provided Lin Xiaodong and the others an opportunity to ascend to higher ground. The equipment produced by the system proved remarkably effective. Initially, Lin Xiaodong felt a twinge of disappointment for having wasted a chance to create an ability, but he soon discovered the extraordinary utility of the system's universal key. It could unlock any lock with ease. Soldiers rushed into several opened rooms, quickly flinging open windows to commence firing. Downstairs, thousands of zombies surged forth, including powerful variants, lickers, and some indistinct small black dots that followed. "Ah, the rats!" Lin Xiaodong cried out, his voice piercing like a high-pitched whistle, sending shivers down his spine. As apex predators in the food chain, humanity typically found it unchallenging to confront formidable beasts. After all, no matter how large, they could always be dealt with by a single bullet or cannon. Or, at the very least, a large Ivan. While the world may lack such ordnance, air fuel bombs, akin to subnuclear devices, certainly existed. However, in the face of ants and rodents, humanity has rarely emerged victorious in warfare. Not to mention rodents, even rabbits, kangaroos, or camels could escalate into a calamity, proving too formidable for even the mightiest military to eradicate. Lin Xiaodong was unconcerned about the tanks and trucks, under the protection of the tendrils. He believed that no horde of zombie rats could pose a threat to the tree girl, who could spawn little tendrils at will. But what about the upper levels? If those zombie rats managed to ascend, one should not meddle in affairs that do not concern them, he thought, and promptly made a decisive move, grabbing Lulu and tossing her downstairs. Lulu was in no danger. Weighing just 2 kilograms, a gust of wind could easily lift her. Moreover, she was tethered by a silk thread, and, as long as she didn't crash directly to the ground, she would be fine. "Quickly, go fetch Lilith and the others." With a high-pitched cry akin to a little minion, Lulu soared through the air, landing swiftly and dashing towards Lilith. Along the way, she encountered several zombie rats, but with remarkable agility, she executed a series of acrobatic moves, kicking and delivering a combination of punches that sent the small, undead creature flying. However, before she could touch down, an exuberant little dog rushed forward, seizing the opportunity to bite down and devour the hapless creature. As Lulu ran, she indignantly yelled at the dog, only to suddenly collide with an unexpected obstacle. The large eyes spun within their sockets after the impact, and as they lifted their gaze, they beheld Lilith, adorned with an angelic smile. Like a thief in the night, the flamboyant Lulu pressed her wide mouth against Lilith's ear, chattering incessantly while performing a myriad of gestures. Eventually, she settled atop Lilith's neck, urging her to hasten and flee with the spirited husky. A horde of various zombies surged into the reach of the tentacled creature, yet this did not perturb the tree sprite. The tentacle, as ever, opened wide to seize a zombie's head, and with a vigorous tug, it dispatched the severed remnants of the undead into a heap, allowing the little tentacles to gnaw leisurely at their prize. Unfortunately, beneath the zombies lay a multitude of diminutive zombie mice, which, from the vantage of the upper floors, appeared as mere specks. They effortlessly ascended the tentacle's form and began to nibble away. Unfazed by the absence of pain, the tentacle remained undaunted. However, the sheer number of zombie mice proved troublesome. Their robust bodies whipped like lashes against the ground, crushing many zombies and zombie mice into a pulp. Yet, the overwhelming quantity of the zombie mice began to vex Lin Xiaodong. He was not alone in his plight. Even Su Feihong, accompanied by his Tier 3 scavenger Ding Ding, found himself in a predicament. Though the biological hierarchy dissuaded the zombie mice from biting Ding Ding, they exhibited considerable interest in Su Feihong. As the dense swarm of zombie mice rapidly engulfed Ding Ding, Su Feihong, in a state of urgency, frantically swatted at the relentless creatures. For every handful he dislodged, a fresh wave surged forth. "Boss, think of something. There are too many of these little pests for me to handle. My armor alerts me that I can withstand this assault for no more than 15 minutes before its defensive capabilities are depleted. Curse that Air Force Base. Why be so miserly? With carbon fiber on the front and back, what harm would there be in adding a bit more? It's merely money, There's plenty in the bank. So why be so stingy? Yeah, what can be done now? 15 minutes was all Su Feihong had, as if misfortune were not enough. While Lin Xiaodong was still contemplating how to assist Su Feihong, the tree sprite began to wail in his mind. Wah, mice, so many mice. I detest them. I utterly detest these mice. The tree sprite's lament escalated, and the colossal tentacle lashed downward with ferocity. Much like before, it succeeded in flattening a swath of zombies and zombie mice. Yet the numbers were simply too great. What to do? What to do? This is truly a dreadful day. Even more terrifying, the zombie mice were visibly climbing up the building, a dark carpet slowly consuming its structure. Hey, you researchers, hurry up and devise a solution, or I shall have no choice but to fashion a carbon fiber coffin to encase you. With no solution in sight, Lin Xiaodong turned to a few researchers, only to be met with unexpected conditions. They exchanged glances, suggesting that while solutions existed, they first required to return home. Where is your home? He inquired. The entire 35th floor belongs to us. At this moment, Lin Xiaodong felt a sense of unease, for the 35th floor bore the brunt of his misdeeds, leaving him incredulous that anything salvageable remained. After contemplating the situation, he resolved that upon returning to the rooftop, there was a silk thread connecting to the adjacent building. Should a horde of zombie rats surge forward, he could retreat to that structure. Even if they attempted to traverse the silk, it would be a simple matter to sever the thread with a swift strike. With this thought in mind, he called out to Su Feihong, urging him to hasten back and ascend using the silk thread he had discarded, intending to eliminate the zombie rats once they were off the ground. At that moment, Su Feihong was already retreating towards the building. Lin Xiaodong tossed down another strand of silk and shouted to the soldiers, instructing them that once Su, their instructor, secured the silk, he would be pulled up. He then mentally communicated with the tree spirit, indicating that the zombie rats had ascended the stairs, and that it would be advantageous to cultivate more small limbs, especially the smaller appendages. These could either encircle the larger limbs or grow directly upon them. Having conveyed his directives, he led several researchers and Meyer to the elevator shaft. Meyer, he instructed, observe my maneuvers. When Su Feihong and the others arrive, operate the manual elevator to bring them to the top floor. Be cautious not to drop too much money when tossing it down. Be wary, lest you collide with the ceiling upon reaching the top. Chapter 176, Methods to Combat Zombie Mice as long as we can equip ourselves with carbon fiber armor. The mice should pose no issue. Indeed, our food storage should also be fortified, although that is primarily to guard against biohazardous rodents. The zombie mice may not necessitate such measures. However, concerning the dogs, the optoelectronic detection researcher, Huang Jianzhong, furrowed his brow and spoke uncertainly, generally. Such communal organisms possess unique methods of communication, akin to the figure-eight dance of bees or the antennae touch of ants. It is plausible that the zombie mice have evolved to utilize a form of sound wave, pursuing specific frequencies. This possibility is quite substantial. Please, do not squander any more funds. You cannot fathom how precious strategic resources are at this juncture. The materials researcher, Meng Ying, shrieked in dismay as she watched Lin Xiaodong toss bills down from the manual elevator, her hands flailing as if to seize him. Enough with the nonsense. Tell me, do you truly have a method to counter the zombie mice? Casting a glance at Lin Xiaodong, the curly-haired Davis frowned and said, Cease your clamor. We are deliberating on a comprehensive solution to eradicate the zombie mice. For now, the existing resources are yours to manage. Damn it, you all keep chattering, and I had assumed you actually possessed a plan. In truth, the others were not a significant threat, clad as they were in full combat armor, which could withstand the gnawing of zombie mice for several minutes. The real danger lay with the researchers. All right, your current task is to isolate the frequency of that sound wave and devise a device to generate it, subsequently luring the zombie mice together and then incinerating them. Would that not suffice? The researchers ceased their banter, and once more, it was Davis who spoke. This approach is feasible, yet it is not a long-term solution, merely a temporary fix. However, the researchers soon shifted their focus, and upon reaching the rooftop, they were astonished to discover that their former abode had been inundated. Not only was it exceedingly damp, but every door stood wide open. Regardless of the researchers' exclamations about their former home, Lin Xiaodong continued to toss a pile of bills from the manual elevator to facilitate the descent of others. His mind was preoccupied with devising a strategy against the zombie mice. Even if he were to identify the so-called sound wave frequency, how would he contend with the assembled zombie mice? Moreover, many windows on the top floor were shattered. Should all broken windows be sealed with carbon fiber in the future, the likelihood of zombie mice infiltrating would diminish significantly. At that point, rigorous vigilance would suffice, but what should be done in the present? As Lin Xiaodong paced restlessly, he truly felt like an ant on a hot pan, an apt description of his current state. He then rushed to a room with a view of the ground floor, surveying the zombies that were intruding into the community due to the demolished entrance. Of course, this was only a fraction of them. The area was relatively quiet, with no distant zombies approaching. Simultaneously, he discerned the source of the zombie mice, a broken sewer cover from which a steady stream of zombie mice emerged, akin to a black spring bubbling forth. His initial thought was to use the bills to directly block the mouth of the well. Regardless, it is carbon fiber, and even the ferocious undead mice cannot gnaw through it. However, what should be done about those that have already emerged? And how does one even reach that accursed place? Why do these undead mice? They avoid the level 3 devourers, which is a manifestation of biological oppression. It is akin to how the excrement of a beast can instill fear in other creatures, prompting them to flee. Yet the corpses of those spitting monsters, Lin Xiaodong found it peculiar that the undead mice were actually avoiding the remains of the spitting monsters slain by Su Feihong. Are they afraid of the corpse acid? Undead creatures are not typically deterred by corpse acid, so why would the undead mice fear it? However, this is not the time for such deliberations. He must block the well from which the undead mice are emerging, and he also needs. Boss, there are so many undead mice. They've broken through the window and are climbing up the elevator shaft. When his subordinate appeared before Lin Xiaodong, even encased in thick individual armor, Meyer's body trembled incessantly. In that case, you all don your armor, coat yourselves in corpse fluid, and then affix banknotes to your bodies. This way, you need not fear the bites of the undead mice. Upon hearing his words, Meyer's fear seemed to wane somewhat, fueled by his trust. He then locked the researchers and Lilith in a secure room. The doors and windows were sealed with banknotes and corpse fluid, ensuring safety from the undead mice. Even if a few managed to enter, Lilith and her companions could eliminate them. Glancing at his subordinates, he commanded, Meyer, you must enter as well. But boss, where are we to find so much corpse fluid now? Su Feihong inquired anxiously, noting the numerous bites that had marred his armor. No worries. We have plenty of that substance. Follow me downstairs. When everyone beheld the stockpile of corpse acid and fluid that Lin Xiaodong had amassed for the construction of a disc-shaped airship, their eyes widened in astonishment. Just then, the sounds of Lilith and 8 huskies echoed through the corridor. Hurry, I will protect the researchers. Racing up the stairs, Lin Xiaodong discovered that the undead mice had indeed appeared. However, they were not emerging from the sealed elevator shaft, but rather entering through the broken glass. This way here, quickly. The few undead mice that had just appeared were completely overwhelmed by the 8 huskies and Lilith. Each of the small huskies could sever one with a single bite, while Lilith leapt and stomped, crushing several underfoot with a single step. Lin Xiaodong bellowed, and several researchers, responding to his call, hurriedly ascended to the 34th floor. Descending, he recalled the layout and opened a glass door to a room where the windows and doors were intact. Get in quickly, Lilith. As Lin Xiaodong shouted, Lilith and the 8 huskies charged downstairs. Although the undead mice had grown to the size of domestic cats, their speed remained sluggish. By the time Lilith and her companions entered the room, the undead mice appeared in the corridor. With no time to wait for Meyer, Lin Xiaodong swiftly slammed the door shut. At that moment, the undead mice swarmed him. However, against armor that bullets could not penetrate and which had been integrated by the system, the sharp teeth of the undead mice proved utterly ineffective. At this moment, Lin Xiaodong felt an impatient longing for Meyer and the others to finish affixing their armor. Ignoring the grimy appearance of his body, covered in remnants of zombie mice, he approached a residence with an open window. He then secured a strand of silk to the window frame and, akin to a diver, spread his arms wide and plunged downwards. To his delight, he realized that after his recent experiences outside, he felt no trepidation as he leaped from the building. Soon, he spotted the grove formed by the limbs of the arachnids below, and with satisfaction, he noted how the tree branches had resolved his predicament. The arachnids were still capturing an ever-dwindling number of zombie mice, and although many zombie mice clung to their bodies, they had also sprouted numerous diminutive limbs, akin to the thickness of a water pipe. Much like the coral of the sea, these tiny limbs resembled coral polyps, reaching out to ensnare the drifting plankton. Comparatively, capturing the zombie mice proved to be remarkably simple. One merely had to grasp the head of the zombie mouse with the six-pointed mandibles and exert a slight pressure. With a crisp snap, the head of the zombie mouse would shatter like an eggshell. Chapter 177. Rat Mountain. Given that the attacks of the zombie rats pose no threat to Lin Xiaodong, it is hardly surprising that he confidently strides amidst the horde of these undead creatures. The only downside is that with so many zombie rats around, he is unable to indulge in a cigar. Despite the creatures crawling all over him, coating him in a dark, grimy layer, he feels no additional discomfort. After all, they are merely rodents. In his childhood, the easiest source of meat in the countryside was indeed rats, followed by rabbits, and only later came snakes. These diminutive zombie rats, their fur glistening with an oily sheen, possess eyes as red as rubies. Compared to their ordinary counterparts, these zombie rats appear rather dull-witted, unable to discern that Lin Xiaodong is the type to regard them as mere fodder, a foolhardy individual with a bold demeanor. However, what purpose do these zombie rats serve? There is no rush. First, the utility of the zombies must be explored before considering these inconspicuous little creatures. Strolling along the community path, armed with a blade, he faces the zombies and zombie rats with not a hint of trepidation. Upon reaching the manhole cover from which the zombie rats incessantly emerge, he murmurs to himself, "Withdraw funds." It seems the system can intuit his intentions, as several solid, heavy bills resembling stones come crashing down, followed by scattered notes filling the gaps. The resulting pile of currency, as heavy and silent as a grave mound, suggests that the zombie rats below are gnawing away furiously. Yet, how could their teeth compare in strength to carbon fiber? One could expect them to gnaw for a millennium without success. With the sewer exit sealed, the influx of zombie rats ceases. Lin Xiaodong envisions employing a drone equipped with corpse acid, spraying it along the exterior of the building, causing the ascending zombie rats to plummet to their demise. Just then, a piece of good news arrives from Meyer. "Boss, the researchers have isolated an audio frequency that attracts zombie rats. Do you need it?" What good would it do? Wouldn't it require a special player? That frequency is inaudible to humans. Feeling somewhat disheartened, he is unexpectedly met with another piece of good news from Meyer. "Boss, you're the only one still using an old tablet. I must say, you're quite fortunate. The tablet can play it." "The tablet? It would be a pity if my tablet, connected to the helmet, were destroyed. This glorious yet arduous task can only be accomplished by you, as your armor is impervious to corpse acid." Listening to Meyer's sultry tone assign him this non-dangerous, albeit slightly disgusting task, Lin Xiaodong merely shrugs indifferently. As the head of the household, it is incumbent upon him to undertake such a duty, a manifestation of what it means to be a man. "All right, send the audio my way for playback, and I will dispatch the agricultural drone. Remember, there must be no metal in the tank for the corpse acid. All yours, dear boss. We'll be waiting for your return." As the audio is transmitted, Lin Xiaodong unhesitatingly begins to play it. One cannot help but commend the researchers for their skill in isolating the frequency. As the sound resonates, the previously scattered zombie rats in the community begin to converge towards him. As a horde of zombie mice surged forth, Lin Xiaodong instinctively sensed the imminent danger. With a fervent swing of his spear, he cleaved through the creatures, each stroke severing countless zombies in twain. Yet, a greater multitude of these undead rodents inundated him like a tidal wave, swiftly overwhelming him and forming an ever-growing mound of vermin. Goodness, their speed is astonishing. At this rate, I shall be crushed, Lin thought, as the sheer number of zombie mice rendered his weapon ineffective. With a sudden snap, the leopard claw blade emerged, and he summoned 4 times his normal strength, desperately flailing his arms. He yearned to ascend. However, the incessantly moving horde left no stable foothold. Despite his frantic struggles, it was evident that the available space was diminishing rapidly, becoming increasingly constricted and oppressive. On the brink of asphyxiation, Lin gazed at the blue display of his full enclosed helmet, which had commenced a countdown for oxygen supply. To his dismay, the helmet also presented a chilling statistic. It would shatter in 5 minutes. The thought of such a catastrophic failure, requiring immense weight to breach the system's product, was harrowing. "Quickly bring the acid," he urged. "Boss, we have a problem. The drone's dosing compartment contains metal," came a frantic reply. "Use a plastic container instead." At that moment, the pressure on Lin intensified, as he found himself buried beneath a myriad of zombie mice, resembling a black conical volcano. Standing resolutely atop this mound, he was grateful for his quadrupled strength, which prevented him from being flattened. Were he to lie down, he would have certainly perished by now. Meanwhile, the Apocalyptic radio station was broadcasting live coverage of the chaos. I witnessed a figure clad in an indeterminate scale armor being buried beneath a mound of mice. He must belong to the expedition team advancing toward the city center. Such valor for the safety of his comrades. In the midst of frantic efforts, those responsible for hoisting the acid-filled container onto the drone were fraught with anxiety. "Damn it! Turn off your wretched radio. Otherwise, I swear." A frown creased the brows of the researchers as they scrutinized the situation, deep in thought. The conscripted soldiers attempted to secure a rope to the bottom of the container. "This won't do. The rope is too heavy, and if it's too far, it will surely topple the barrel." The mechanic, Lin Siwei, shook his head, wearing an expression of skepticism about the plan. Lin Xiaodong was ensnared in peril, and they were all acutely aware of the dire circumstances. Yet, the pressing issue remained. Without the drone's dosing compartment, there was no means to deploy the acid. Morel, now devoid of her earlier composure, lamented the misfortune of the drone failing at such a critical juncture. "Hurry, it's not here yet. My time is down to 3 minutes. Boss, we can't pour the acid down." Lin's labored voice conveyed his struggle, and Morel responded with a voice teetering on the edge of tears. "Spider silk, bottom of the barrel." Hearing Lin's desperate plea, a spider unleashed its silk from its spinneret. Upon seeing the silk thread, the individual experienced a sudden epiphany. This ethereal strand possessed negligible weight. As long as it adhered to the bottom of the bucket suspended by the drone, a mere tug on the silk would release the acidic liquid upon arrival. With a method in hand, the execution became remarkably straightforward. Observing the agricultural drone soaring from the building, Meal clasped her hands in prayer against her chest. Meanwhile, the radio, still broadcasting, remained on. The voice of the announcer, Xiao Ku, incessantly filled the air with his chatter. He was indeed a heroic figure, a man of great stature, one who had transcended base interests, yet Meal's countenance darkened increasingly, and venomous words escaped her lips. Should the boss manage to extricate himself this time, it would be well. Otherwise, she vowed to capture the scoundrel and administer 2 pounds of poison, rendering him mute. As her curse lingered in the air, the agricultural drone, under the deft control of Lin Xiaodong, drew nearer. However, the digits displayed on his helmet dwindled to a mere 30 seconds. Beneath the mouse mountain, Lin Xiaodong shouted, "Prepare for the next bucket." Chapter 178. Snatching food from a dog. As Lin Xiaodong's roar echoed through the air, Meyer instinctively pulled on the spider silk. Yet, Meng Ying, the materials researcher wielding an electronic telescope, shouted urgently, "No. You've missed, Meyer. You might kill your boss." At her cry, Meyer's legs gave way, and she collapsed to the ground. The usual enchanting tone of her voice was replaced by an unbearable sorrow. "Boss, oh dear boss. Beast God, what have you done? I've finally found a good man." Her unrestrained lamentation caused every brow to furrow, though they soon relaxed, realizing that harboring jealousy over a corpse was hardly commendable. From the radio broadcast, Xiao Ku observed the scene with clarity, letting out a sigh that was tinged with emotion. It seems they intend to utilize corpse acid to eliminate the zombie rats. Regardless of whether this hypothesis holds merit, I can see quite clearly that all the corpse acid has been misdirected. Indeed, the crimson acid fell through the wind, visibly straying from its intended target. The area where it splashed down was notably elevated, causing a portion of the acid to be scattered by the breeze. Continuing his commentary on the voice of the Apocalypse radio station, Xiao Ku posed a lingering question. How do they manage to gather all the zombie rats together? If we understood their method, we could replicate it and incinerate those wretched creatures en masse. Just then, as Lin Xiaodong strained every last breath to control the outpouring of acid, he too was scrutinizing the outcome. The deviation from Rat Mountain was due to his familiarity with the air currents in this area. He anticipated a powerful gust to emerge at any moment. Should his prediction prove erroneous, his life would be forfeit, but if he were correct, as the corpse acid was blown away, it descended like a rain of blood upon Rat Mountain. The intensely corrosive red acid showed no mercy as it began to dissolve the zombie rats. And the results were far from over. A white mist of acid surged forth, transforming numerous zombie rats into liquid, which astonishingly morphed into a pale blue hue. Even more astonishing was that this blue liquid retained its potent corrosive properties. Xiao Ku, witnessing the scene from an undisclosed vantage point, shouted with fervor, "He has succeeded. I see vast amounts of white smoke rising from the acid's corrosion. Moreover, it seems that a reaction has occurred between the corpse acid and the zombie rats." Pausing momentarily to adjust an unseen lens, he resumed with an exhilarated shout. "Oh my heavens! I can hardly believe it. The red corpse acid has transformed into a blue liquid with formidable corrosive strength. The rate of corrosion is astounding. Rat Mountain is rapidly melting away right before my eyes." Upstairs, fortunately, Su Feihong had not turned off the radio, and the frenzied excitement in Xiao Ku's voice was audible to all. Upon hearing the broadcast, Meyer leapt to the window. Indeed, below, Rat Mountain was melting just as described on the air, releasing vast plumes of white smoke. "Boss, the formidable boss, I have an affection for you. I yearn to engage in indiscreet activities with you." Amidst the slightly frenzied cries, Meyer, despite her chest bouncing in a way that made the rabbit want to flee, raised her arms and cheered loudly. At that moment, a voice emanating from the helmet reminded everyone that Lin Xiaodong remained steadfast in his scholarly demeanor. "What the hell? How did the corpse acid turn blue?" "Oh my, the rate of corrosion is astonishingly swift." His voice caught the attention of the materials researcher, Meng Ying, who exclaimed, "Fetch a container. We need to collect some. We must document every stage of the solution in its transformation." Lin Xiaodong, liberated from Mouse Mountain, was astonished to witness a zombie mouse, no larger than a kitten, being completely corroded within mere seconds. Not only was it disintegrated, but this included its bones as well. What kind of reaction is this? At this juncture, the entirety of Mouse Mountain appeared nearly leveled, as the addition of the zombie mouse's bodily fluids accelerated the corrosion even further. However, it seemed that the blue acidic liquid was gradually transitioning to green as the number of zombie mice diminished. Despite the rapid corrosion, the zombie mice, responding to the subsonic calls, continued to charge towards the center of the acidic liquid. "Meyer, cease your shouting, bring another barrel." "Boss, do you treat corpse acid as a beverage? Bring another barrel." The alluring and enchanting voice echoed, prompting Lin Xiaodong, his mind preoccupied with the experiment, to shout back, "Hurry up, no time for dilly-dallying." Soon, a drone arrived, lowering a barrel of corpse acid. Lin Xiaodong added the red corpse acid to the mixture. What had previously been a gradually calming reaction abruptly intensified with the addition of the red corpse acid. The solution, once shifting to green, reverted to blue, and the rate of corrosion of a zombie mouse decreased from several seconds to merely 5 or 6 seconds. These liquids are quite fascinating, if time permits. I shall study them thoroughly. Meng Ying, eager for research, declared, "Find a sturdy large glass jar. I need to collect the zombie mice. And a few glass cups would be necessary." Without needing further prompting from Lin Xiaodong, the materials-obsessed Meng Ying dashed off in search of containers. Curly-haired Wei-Si tugged at his wool-like brown beard, pondering that if the corpse acid could dissolve the zombie mice, it would regenerate a fresh batch of blue acid, ultimately leading to the creation of a green, weakly acidic, unknown substance. Hey, don't run away, you mischievous creatures. Suddenly, Meng Ying's voice rang out from outside. Waving off the soldiers, Meyer showed little interest in the researchers' antics. The soldiers rushed outside to find Meng Ying foolishly tugging at Lilith's fluffy tail, while Lilith and several small huskies each held a zombie mouse in their mouths. It was evident that the dogs, spotting the zombie mice, mistook Meng Ying's presence for playtime and began to frolic around her, still clutching their prizes. Particularly Lilith, ensnared by the tail, wore an angelic smile as she gazed at Meng Ying. The 8 small huskies, perhaps aware of Meng Ying's desire for their zombie mice, were all the more mischievous. Deliberately provoking Meng Ying to snatch, as she approached, he swiftly seized the zombie and dashed away. In the midst of the strange smile from the husky, Meng Ying resembled a clumsy bear, panting heavily yet obtaining nothing. This sight elicited hearty laughter from the 8 soldiers assisting him. Likely through the helmet camera of one of the soldiers, Lin Chaodong shouted urgently, "Hurry up, stop playing around, and bring me a container." Indeed, the soldiers who had transferred from the rogue ranks lacked the demeanor expected of soldiers. Lin Chaodong felt increasingly certain that once Jerry returned from maternity leave, he would need to intensify their training. However, the maternity period began at 6 months and extended for 2 years. What a ridiculous system, even in the apocalypse. There are maternity leaves. How absurd. Chapter 179. The Research Institute of the Apocalypse. We are in need of a laboratory. This building. Observing the expression of curly-haired Davis, it seems evident that this edifice has been thoroughly ravaged by Lin Chaodong. Indeed, considering the elevator shaft below is cluttered with tree limbs, and the upper floors are marred by the scars of battle, one cannot help but agree. As for safety concerns, Lin Chaodong has already made arrangements. Rest assured, you may reside in that building, for it is secure, and it will become even more so. However, gazing at the anxious, curly-haired Davis, Lin Chaodong commenced the scheme he had long contemplated. Look, we are in an apocalyptic world. Survival is a struggle for everyone. I shall provide you with protection, sustenance, and research resources. In return, what can you offer me? Upon hearing this, Davis adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses, his countenance betraying a palpable embarrassment. Indeed, what could they offer? They were not soldiers relying on a supply system. Unlike Meyer and Su Feihong, who were employed and earned their own income, they were essentially devoid of assets. Aside from the instruments and equipment they had salvaged, it is unlikely that anyone during these dire times would concern themselves with advancements in technology. No, those devices cannot be relinquished. If I were to give them to you, our research. No. A hint of trepidation flickered in Davis's eyes as they darted back and forth, following the movement of Lin Chaodong's finger, his puzzlement evident behind the lenses of his glasses. Lin Chaodong continued, I do not seek your equipment. Rather, you may provide me with a list of your needs, and I shall procure the necessary apparatus for you. Of course, this will require compensation. Do you comprehend the notion of compensation? At that moment, Lin Chaodong resembled a merciless capitalist. His fingers intertwined as if toying with the hopes of the researchers. His eyes betrayed a scheming intent, contemplating underhanded methods to gain the trust of the innocent scholars. Boss, we lack funds. Davis's face was awash with shame, nearly bowing in submission. For they were virtually destitute aside from the knowledge in their minds and the research equipment they possessed. No, you do have resources. You might consider selling Aiju for a fair price. Additionally, the other one, a die, can be sold to us as well. But you must assist me in uploading Aiju's program into it. That creature is simply too dim-witted. Boss, isn't that a tad too generous towards them? Meyer interjected, her arms crossed defiantly. Habitually, she rested her ample bosom atop her arms, as if to ensure Lin Chaodong took notice. No, this is merely an employment arrangement, albeit differing from the nature of your contracts with Sue. Upon concluding his statement, he turned to face the conflicted curly-haired Davis, flashing a grin that revealed his pearly whites, shimmering as if he were about to indulge in a sumptuous feast. Biting his lip, curly-haired Davis acquiesced. Very well, I can sell them to you, Aiju, and it is designated as number 2. not a die. Enough chatter. Provide your quote. The prospect of expenditure brought a radiant smile to Lin Xiaodong's face, blooming like a flower. Yet, the more elated he appeared, the more trepidation gripped curly-haired Davis. As he reached the count of 100, Lin Xiaodong felt a chill in his heart and quickly reminded, "It's perfectly fine if it costs a bit more, truly." 1,000,000, he pondered, what could that accomplish? Could it facilitate an upgrade? He was acutely aware of the significant gap remaining before he could attain the next level of opulence. He endeavored to maintain a smile, his index finger pointing skyward as if attempting to pierce the heavens. Unfortunately, the honest Davis, with his curly hair, was oblivious to Lin's subtle hints. He mustered his courage and quoted a price of 10,000,000. Eager to spend, Lin Xiaodong readily acquiesced. "All right, 10,000,000 for one. But what about the modification costs? Isn't it a replication of the Aiju system? Such a high-tech endeavor." As he spoke, he gestured towards the sky, envisioning that it represented the system's core, wishing he could puncture it. "Dude, are you foolish? A mere pet spider shouldn't cost more than 1,000,000 or so." He interjected, hastily covering Meyer's mouth while signaling Davis not to heed the foolish woman. "Feel free to propose a bold price. I won't mind the cost." This time, Davis grasped the situation entirely. He increased his audacity. 5. Noticing Lin Xiaodong's dissatisfaction as he continued to poke the sky with his finger, he licked his lips and continued. 10. Lin's visage contorted into that of a bitter melon, his finger moving with the rapidity of bullets, incessantly jabbing at the air. Upon hearing Davis's final offer, Lin felt a wave of disheartenment wash over him. Yet, having spent 25,000,000 was preferable to having spent nothing at all. The balance stood at infinity, with expenditures totaling 133, 114, 583. Intelligence, 12, weak, constitution, 23, medium, agility, 21, medium, endurance, 25, medium, perception, 20, medium, skills, close quarters combat, pistol rapid fire, tactical assault, sniper training, underwater special operations, wilderness survival, parachuting, extreme sports enthusiast, automotive repair, level 3, lockpicking, level 5, clever drug administration, female psychology, delay techniques, level 2, emotional assessment of women, level 5, biochemical abilities, heart extraction, fear sensing, swift legs, level 1, eagle eye technique, level 4, fireball technique, level 3, strength mastery, level 4. Gazing at the system panel, Lin Xiaodong found himself utterly speechless, still lacking over 70,000,000 to ascend to the next tier. However, in this post-apocalyptic world, spending money was far from simple. Even though everyone desired carbon fiber, the timidness of the curly-haired Davis was exceedingly apparent. Gripping him, Lin led the other researchers to the top floor, the room stuffed with cash. Minjing, the materials researcher, was eager to make a move. Seizing the opportunity, Lin recalled a time when he had pinned a zombie to the ground with money and declared, "You can have it for 25,000,000. Addressing Davis earnestly, he stated, "From this moment onward, you shall be among the first employees of the Apocalypse Research Institute. You shall be the business owner, albeit under our group. You may choose your research direction freely, and I will profit by hiring you to investigate all projects. What say you?" Gazing intently at Lin Xiaodong, the curly-haired Davis appeared somewhat dazed by the recent revelation of a staggering 25,000,000. Before him stood a house constructed of carbon fiber, and he could scarcely believe that the fantastical notions swirling in his mind could be realized through the financial backing of this individual. Ignoring the researchers who seemed transfixed in astonishment, Lin Xiaodong continued his persuasive discourse, asserting that their research outcomes could be auctioned, with the highest bidder prevailing. However, he proclaimed, regardless of the sum offered by others, he would pay double the amount. How astute of me, he mused, to bid on technological achievements, confident that there would always be foolish bidders willing to inflate the price. Yet, observing the dazed expression on Davis's face, Lin Xiaodong felt a twinge of anxiety over the possibility of him having second thoughts. With a menacing glare, he warned, "You may continue your research without fear, as long as it is conducted fairly. Do you understand? For instance, if I offer twice the amount others do, should you dare to sell to anyone else at this point, Lin Xiaodong subtly turned to reveal the .44 Magnum revolver at his side, inquiring, "Do you comprehend my words?" Yes, yes. We shall focus solely on the research, and you will handle everything else, ensuring that the results are not sold to anyone else," Davis replied, nodding. He then patted Davis on the shoulder, emphasizing that they were to sell at a price twice that of others. "Furthermore, I have a research direction I wish to entrust to your institute. Has anyone heard of flapping wing aircraft?" Chapter 180, The Night Owl in Need of Sleep Boss. You are surprisingly interested in the flapping wing machine. Is it akin to a dragonfly? I had a feeling that bionics piqued your curiosity. Even the boots you wear are a masterpiece of biomimicry. Amid my astonished inquiries, a figure lunged at me like a zombie, causing Lin Xiaodong to leap aside in fright. Goodness, this fellow is truly heavy. The force of his leap nearly overwhelmed me. With a swift push, I managed to shove him away, revealing the blade of my claw weapon. The assailant was researcher Gang Duo, a specialist in bionics. Although Lin Xiaodong had pushed him back, the gleam of eagerness in his eyes suggested he was still intent on lunging towards him. "Halt! Take another step, and I'll—" The blade gleamed as I brandished it, simultaneously eliciting cheers from Meyer. "Boss, such a weapon is incredibly cool. I want one too. Your matters can wait. Let me first resolve the situation regarding the Apocalypse Research Institute," Lin Xiaodong replied, ignoring Meyer's fervent gaze. "Yes, just like a dragonfly, ideally larger and capable of carrying passengers. What do you think?" Upon hearing Lin Xiaodong's request, Gang Duo furrowed his brow and tugged at his scant goat-like beard. Creating a small drone isn't particularly challenging. The technology is quite advanced. However, constructing a larger version may prove difficult. It's not that our research on dragonflies is insufficient, but rather that we lack an engine of exceptional quality. Engines are manageable, whether it be from a tank, a truck, a car, or a motorcycle. "I can procure whatever you need," Lin Xiaodong assured him, confident that the highways, bustling with countless vehicles, would yield suitable engines. However, Gang Duo shook his pumpkin-like head vigorously, causing Lin Xiaodong to worry that his slender neck might not withstand the motion. No. Currently, the best power-to-weight ratio for aviation engines is a mere 15:1, which is entirely inadequate. We require an engine with a significantly greater power-to-weight ratio, perhaps 30:1 or even higher. Understood. I will devise a solution for the engine. For now, design it to accommodate 2 passengers, and we can consider a larger model once the engine issue is resolved. Upon concluding his statement, Lin Xiaodong began a search for Lin Siwei, the mechanic at the Research Institute, the only one donned in a blue lab coat, and a rather lanky fellow at that, so frail that a gust of wind might carry him aloft. To his surprise, upon facing Lin Xiaodong, Lin Siwei waved his hands dismissively. "Don't look at me. What you need is a team of professional engine designers and engineers, and I assure you, they won't be able to achieve that. Yet." Lin Xiaodong sought him for this very matter. He raised the claw blade in his hand, stating, since Meyer expressed admiration for this, crafting a few more should not pose a challenge. Unexpectedly, the lanky figure shook both hands, saying, "For such equipment, you require mechanical processing equipment or a skilled blacksmith. And I am merely a humble mechanic." "Oh, I see. Meyer, I believe this fellow is of no use to us. Should we consider conserving some provisions?" Hearing Lin Xiaodong's contemplative mutterings, Meyer pulled back the bolt of her assault rifle. Though she uttered not a single word, the piercing gaze of her eyes, sharp as ice shards from the Arctic Ocean, instantly compelled Lin Siwei to comprehend the gravity of the situation. "What you require is a 3D printer. If available, I can utilize cash and other materials to endeavor to fabricate this, leopard claw blade," Lin Xiaodong elucidated, raising his hand once more. "With a 3D printer and the necessary funds, I assure you." "That's insufficient," interrupted the rotund figure. Observing Lin Xiaodong's lapse and remembering the man's name, Meyer discreetly leaned in to remind him. "Indeed, I trust that Gang Duo will find your expertise invaluable in the design of a compact dual-person glider. Moreover, fret not about remuneration. Do you see that house? I am quite affluent." His gaze shifted to the optoelectronic engineer Huang Jianzhong, who promptly raised his hand. "Rest assured, Mr. Lin, I shall assist Gang Duo in finalizing the design. However, in the absence of an engine. Trust me, Mr. Lin, to my knowledge, such an engine is exceedingly arduous to manufacture, surpassing the capabilities of contemporary technology. That should not concern you. The individuals at the Apocalypse Research Institute merely need to be aware of your efforts' direction. As for the remaining matters, Lin Chaodong interjected, glancing at the frail researchers. The look in his eyes made it abundantly clear that their lives were about to undergo significant transformation. You lot, if you continue to endure this way, you shall surely work yourselves to death. Su Jiaodo, are you familiar with the 5 animal frolics? Su Feihong shrugged. It's in the school curriculum. I can learn it. What, are you suggesting that we rise early? Oh, for heaven's sake. The materials researcher Meng Ying tugged at her straw-like blonde hair, seemingly wishing to tear it out to avoid the hassle of maintenance. Indeed, this is the rule of our survivor base. Morning exercises are a prerequisite at the Apocalypse Research Institute. And what about you, as the leader of the survivor base? Do you not partake in morning exercises? The optoelectronic detection researcher, Huang Jianzhong, provocatively questioned. Before his words could fully escape his lips, Meyer had already draped herself alluringly over Lin Chaodong's shoulder, stating, "He does not require morning exercises. After a night of training, he needs to indulge in slumber." At this, Meyer cast a suggestive glance toward Lin Chaodong, conveying a clear message. Witnessing her enchanting demeanor, nearly everyone present shivered. Having grasped that a man who had spent an entire night with such a captivating woman indeed had no need for morning exercises. Clapping his hands, Lin Chaodong urged those before him, Move. Soldiers, assist these individuals in relocating. They may choose any room on any floor of the building across from us. Hansen, take a soldier to fabricate carbon fiber tank treads. Meyer, Su Jiaodo, come with me. We have much to attend to. As others began to busily engage in their tasks, Lin Chaodong was pulled aside by Meyer. Boss, you are quite peculiar. Others fear spending excessively, yet you seem anxious about spending too little. However, I have yet to see any extraordinary ability to generate wealth from you. As she spoke, Meyer's large eyes scrutinized Lin Chaodong from head to toe. This, of course, he could not divulge the existence of his godly wealth system to others, for that would surely lead to his dismemberment or, worse, obliteration by the system itself. Are you dissatisfied with your salary? If that is the case. His gaze inadvertently drifted over to Meyer's ample bosom, a curiosity stirring within him about how she could possess such a figure. The renowned sorceress had claimed she had never given birth or nursed a child. Meyer shot him a sultry glance, retorting, I earn a salary, not peddle my body. Thank you very much. After a moment's contemplation, she added, however, if I could make some extra profit from you, wouldn't it be possible for me to hire you for a few tasks? In response, Lin Chaodong shrugged, adopting a nonchalant tone as he replied, Rest assured, Meyer, although I lack the supernatural ability to conjure money, you must believe that my funds are truly inexhaustible. As for your thoughts, heed my advice and keep them carefully tucked away to avoid losing them. With that, Lin Chaodong strode ahead towards the storage room where he had piled materials, intending to equip his 2 capable subordinates anew. Chapter 181. The bridge between buildings. Both Mir and Su Feihong were intended by Lin Chaodong to possess sufficient self-defense capabilities. After all, many tasks would prove overwhelming if solely relying on him. As Su, the instructor, entered the warehouse, Lin casually seized the remaining Jiao blade and tossed it towards Su Feihong. Upon seeing the blade soaring towards him, Su instinctively caught it and, as was his habit, raised his thumb to test the sharpness of the edge. If I were you, I wouldn't do that unless you desire to cut your finger and end up like Ding Ding, Lin remarked, observing Su's effeminate demeanor, which he deemed suitable only for being Ding Ding's sustenance. Boss, what is this fabric? It is both light and elastic. Mia exclaimed, glancing at a piece of white material she held in her hands. That is the skin of the great serpent from downstairs, the scales of that massive creature. Lin informed them, prompting Mir and Su Feihong's eyes to widen in astonishment. Boss, you truly killed that serpent monster. My beast god, how is that possible? They gasped. While this, Su began raising the horn of the python he held, but Lin preemptively answered, It's the horn from the head of that king cobra. Who knows what it might evolve into? It could sprout two horns as it matures. Upon understanding the origins of the Jiao blade in his hands, Su Feihong's eyes glistened with emotion, almost to the point of tears, which amused Lin Chaodong greatly. "Boss, why would you give such a fine item to that delicate fellow?" Su protested, observing Mir's coy demeanor as she yearned for the Jiao blade. Perhaps on other occasions, Su might have yielded to Mir's whims, maintaining a gentlemanly demeanor. But when it pertained to weapons suitable for martial arts, he felt it necessary to be serious. "Miss Mir, you wouldn't know how to wield it. This blade is exceedingly sharp, and one careless move could lead to injury. Mind your own business, you." As Su Feihong remained obstinate, Mir raised her weapon. Noticing her intention to draw a gun, Su instinctively turned to flee, yet he clutched the Jiao blade tightly, unwilling to let go. "Stop fooling around. That thing is too sharp for someone untrained to handle." Upon hearing Lin's words, Mir reluctantly acquiesced. "Oh, this serpent skin is bulletproof, breathable, warm, and waterproof. Your sewing skills are just what we need. We are all men here. We lack the finesse for tailoring." At Lin's suggestion, Mir squawked indignantly like a ruffled chick. "Hey, what do you mean you are all men? Is sewing a task inherently designated for women?" This time, Su Feihong attempted to appease her, saying, "Boss, I can do it. I can sew. I've crafted armor from metal before." "What are you talking about? That serpent skin outfit must fit snugly. If you dare to lay a hand on it, I shall swiftly sever it from you." Listening to Mir's fierce words, Su Feihong, as if shocked, promptly tossed the serpent skin aside, refraining from further attempts to touch it. The remainder of the day was spent busily engaged in their tasks. On another clear morning, Lin Chaodong quietly exited, placing a hand on his waist as he ascended to the rooftop, utilizing spider silk to descend to the 10th floor before finally taking the elevator down. Is it possible that Miss Mir is so formidable that our omnipotent Mr. Lin is left supporting his waist? Upon hearing the remarks of that tree girl, it is evident she is not one to speak kindly. A jealousy laid bare. "You are but a tree. What reason have you to feel envious?" Having awoken in a foul mood due to a sleepless night, Lin Chaodong's irritation was palpable. "You have no idea how insatiable those gluttons can be. Being a master chef for over 20 of them is truly a torment. I, however, have matters to employ you for." Aware that the tree girl was upset, he took a moment to soothe her before recounting his dismal experiences from the previous night. They're all merely trees." In mimicking Lin Chaodong's tone, the tree girl seemed to embody the spirit of a petulant child, sparring with him in playful defiance. "Em sorry. I truly am, but you are in fact a tree." He could only wish for her to sprout a trunk resembling a pipe or a plank. Upon hearing Lin Chaodong's unreasonable request, the tree girl was evidently exasperated and resolved to ignore him henceforth. Finding the situation dull, Lin Chaodong called over the radio, "Mir, Su Jiaodo, you may descend now. There are no zombies here. Get to work." With his summons, Mir and Su Feihong appear before him, both clad in scaled armor, layered with a non-Newtonian fluid for added protection. In contrast, Mir had fashioned her scaled armor over her leather base, which retained her alluring figure. Su Feihong, evidently enamored with ancient armor, had crafted his scaled armor to resemble that of a historic general. Initially, he had considered making scaled armor for his appendage, but Lin Chaodong ultimately permitted him to create only a suit of armor from biochemical materials. As for the Jiao blade, Su Feihong intended to forge a long knife measuring 4 meters, declaring, "I too can claim the heads of great corpses amidst a million." However, today was not for him to play the warrior. His presence was summoned for carpentry, since the researchers had resolved to inhabit the building across from them. Previously cleared of threats by the python, it was imperative to construct a bridge for these seemingly helpless individuals. The 8 soldiers had already completed their 3-centimeter thick armor made from biochemical materials yesterday, with a similar layer of non-Newtonian fluid. Today, their tasks were equally demanding. The 2 of them were utilizing currency and bodily fluids from the rooftop to fabricate 1-centimeter thick biochemical panels. Meanwhile, the remaining soldiers were sealing all the windows of the building, ensuring that even the front door on the ground floor would be entirely enclosed. It was essential to provide the researchers with a comfortable living environment, allowing them to produce results swiftly for then Lin Chaodong could indulge in spending without restraint. There is nothing more costly in this world than advanced scientific achievements, such as the East device, often hailed as an artificial sun, which could command such extravagant expenditures. Just the thought of it left Lin Chaodong salivating. This time, with the assistance of Su Feihong and Mir, he effortlessly felled the completely fibrous limb that the python had bitten off. With simple machinery and a sharp blade, wooden planks were effortlessly crafted, followed by the shaping of wooden sticks, allowing Su Feihong's companion to easily ascend the stairs. A 1-meter-wide plank had evenly spaced holes drilled along both sides and was laid across 2 loosely strung strands of silk between the floors. "Boss, it wobbles quite a bit." Before she could voice her concerns, Lin Chaodong had already ascended the silk with the climbing device. He then inserted the wooden sticks into the pre-drilled holes of the plank, allowing them to protrude slightly beneath, and secured them with strands of silk. This not only tightened the originally slack silk, but also firmly anchored the plank in place. As the bridge extended, the silk was pulled taut, diminishing its sway. Upon completion of the bridge decking, the upper ends of the wooden sticks were connected with thicker pieces, forming a semblance of a handrail. A simple 30-meter-long bridge, exhibiting minimal movement, was thus finished. "Meyer, let's lay another layer on the bridge using cash and bodily fluids. With carbon fiber reinforcement, we can traverse it with confidence." The arrangement for such perilous work was, of course, unsatisfactory. Meyer, with a beguiling yet icy tone, inquired, "Boss, what about him? We can't let that weakling remain idle." "Him? Meyer, do you grasp what the most pressing matter is at hand?" Chapter 182. "You must teach me." Meyer pondered for a moment and caught sight of soldiers clad in black armor, diligently sealing the windows of the scholars' building with biocomposite materials. It was hardly a matter of constructing a sanctuary for those foolish individuals. As Meyer uttered these words, her throat was thick with indignation. The building housing the researchers would pose no safety concerns as long as all entrances were sealed with the biomaterial, effectively preventing any further emergence of zombie mice. However, it seemed rather excessive for the boss to be so concerned about their safety. "No, my dear Meyer, you are mistaken. The paramount issue at hand is energy. Solely relying on solar panels is insufficient to satiate the whims of those lunatics." Moreover, Lin Chaodong interjected, stepping forward and patting Meyer on the shoulder. "You must remember that their research progress represents the future standard of living for our base. Therefore," Meyer regarded Lin Chaodong's face with suspicion, doubting whether his words were mere attempts to placate her. However, upon hearing Lin Chaodong's instructions to Su Feihong, she comprehended that he was indeed serious. "So, now that you have a blade, your task is to procure some spider silk and capture a few of those formidable zombies, the kind that can hurl other zombies with ease." "Capture formidable zombies? What purpose does that serve?" Su Feihong was utterly perplexed by Lin Chaodong's intentions. "What purpose? That is not for you to ponder. Just hurry and fetch them, or else." As Meyer spoke, she pulled the gun's trigger, prompting Lin Chaodong to hurriedly suppress her weapon. "Meyer, do not be so irate. You will scare away all the men around you." With an exasperated glare directed at Lin Chaodong, Meyer stomped off to prepare the bridge. Ignoring the 2 men, dressed in gray armor and already accustomed to the primal panther claw boots, Su Feihong leaped onto Ding Ding's back, provocatively challenging Lin Chaodong. "All right, you call the start." Casually securing a strand of spider silk to the rooftop, Su Feihong seized a moment as Lin Chaodong finished tying it, shouting, "Let us go." With his exclamation, Ding Ding surged forth, darting down the cement wall with remarkable speed. As Ding Ding leaped over the parapet of the top floor, he observed Lin Chaodong retreating to gain a head start. The triumphant grin of Su Feihong appeared at the corners of his mouth. The 6-meter-long Tier 3 Lickard raced down the wall, its sharp claws piercing the concrete to maintain balance. However, his triumph lasted less than 10 seconds. Accompanied by Lin Chaodong's jubilant cheer, a figure soared from the rooftop. It was as if he were running on level ground with panther claw boots, zipping past Su Feihong at an astonishing speed. "You!" The elongated exclamation faded into the wind. Su Feihong stared in astonishment, exclaiming inwardly, "Wow. I never imagined the panther claw boots could be used like this." As he witnessed Lin Chaodong accelerating ever faster, he felt a mix of astonishment and concern. Would such a velocity lead to a disastrous fall at the base of the building? Prompting Ding Ding, Su Feihong urged him to race down the structure. Upon his arrival downstairs, Lin Chaodong found that the web had been securely tightened, hovering just a meter above the ground. He then unfastened the web and gazed at Su Feihong, who descended from a sky riding Ding Ding, the sound of his presence preceding him. "Boss, teach me. This skill is a must to learn." Hearing his voice, Lin Chaodong smiled while reminiscing about his own perilous experiences of falling from the upper floors, a wave of emotion washing over him. "No problem. You can catch a few giant 4 zombies, 7 or 8 should suffice, and toss them for Wanzu to keep an eye on. Additionally, search outside for a generator. Riding Ding Ding along with Jiren should pose little danger. Rest assured. And remember, boss, you promised to teach me the art of jumping from heights." The concept of jumping from heights, what an odd notion. One might mistakenly think he was contemplating despair. Nevertheless, he responded readily, "Absolutely. Just remember, we start tomorrow morning with the techniques of my craft." Su Feihong replied via radio deal. Lin Chaodong, accompanied by Zhu and Lu Lu, who had long awaited this moment, leaped onto Ding Ding's back. "Take us to this community. According to the researchers at the Apocalypse Research Institute, that's where we can most easily find household robots." "All right, boss, could you please sit down? Your standing behind me makes me feel like a mere coachman." With that, Ding Ding departed from the community, racing along the building's edge. Lin Chaodong, positioned behind Su Feihong, carried an antique rifle on his back, wielded a jiren in one hand, and had a shotgun slung across his chest. Lu Lu casually supported his helmet, leisurely admiring the scenery. Similarly clad in scale armor, a Zhu swayed with glee, thrilled to accompany Lin Chaodong on this adventure. Ding Ding, a Tier 3 devourer, prompted nearby creatures, including giant 4 zombies and spitting beasts, to keep their distance. In contrast to the wilderness, while zombies within the city evolved more rapidly than those in the forest, they still lagged behind their counterparts in the open fields. Soon, the community Lin Chaodong aimed for came into view, resembling his own in many aspects. Both were comprised of uniform, modest high-rises. However, this community lacked walls, instead enveloped entirely by 3-story storefronts. This distinction enlightened Lin Chaodong as to why his own community was mockingly dubbed the Imperial Community by the researchers, as it was filled with an array of elite talents sourced from the Empire. The absence of solid walls, replaced by iron railings, was evidently for the sake of surveillance. According to several researchers, Dan City in the Dongkong Republic, with a permanent population of merely 300,000, is an industrial hub. From Lin Chaodong's observations, its land area is less than a third of that of similar cities. It boasts ample green spaces and vast forests beyond its borders. Why, then, is the Dongkong Republic so fervently invested in developing these widespread high-rise residential areas? The answer is quite simple. The Dongkong Republic does not engage in land finance. Their land resource policies are exceptionally stringent. Aside from fulfilling essential needs, they seldom permit reckless real estate development. According to the researchers, only the foolish nation of the empire would consider real estate as a viable avenue for development. In stark contrast, the primary investment focus of the Eastern Kong Republic lies in technology, industry, and the well-being of its citizens. Notably, the initiatives aimed at public health, free education, and collective elder care stand out among its social projects. It is precisely due to this astute policy direction that the Eastern Kong Republic emerges as the most formidable nation on the entire Lei Star, boasting unparalleled prowess in technology, economy, and industry alongside the mightiest military in the world. It is a nation that all scholars aspire to emulate. Furthermore, it is recognized as the most incorruptible country globally, where the enforcement of laws against public office crimes is characterized by a severe approach, often resulting in capital punishment, pursued relentlessly across the globe. Should an individual guilty of office corruption flee abroad, while wealth may be relinquished, the lives of their entire family are invariably at stake. Reflecting on the researchers' insights, Lin Chaodong felt an overwhelming sense of affinity for the Eastern Kong Republic. Indeed, it is a paradise-like nation that perhaps deserves salvation. What do you think? Lulu and Iju? As the most powerful nation in the world, it is also the most envied. Perhaps it is precisely this reason that the catastrophic bioweapon incident originated from the Eastern Kong Republic, ultimately impacting the entire globe. So, who is responsible for unleashing the biological virus? Chapter 183. The principled sheep for Lin Xiaodong. Exploring the residential building was not a perilous endeavor. Of course, entering directly through the front door remained an imprudent action. Even if armor-piercing bullets could not penetrate, being overwhelmed by a horde of zombies would still spell a cruel demise. The solution lay in employing the Lulula brand smart flying grabber. However, he lacked the capability to launch it 200 or 300 meters away. Yet, this light and buoyant device could be transported aloft by a small drone to several hundred meters in the air, where it merely needed to release its silk threads. Particularly, Lululu held no allure for the zombies, as researchers explained that its scent of cosmetics was more pronounced than that of flesh and blood. Unfortunately, Meyer relished adorning Lululu with fragrant embellishments daily, rendering the delightful green orb even more tedious to the zombies. Through the visual feed provided by Lululu's singular eye, Lin Xiaodong observed it tying its silk threads atop the building, then reclining with its legs crossed, extending its slender arms to greet an unknown object on the rooftop. This bore no significance for Lin Xiaodong, who leapt from Ding Ding, clutching the silk as he sprinted along the building's exterior. Su Feihong gazed upon him with envy. His eyes filled with admiration. He understood that it was the combined prowess of the leopard claw boots and the silk threads, yet he felt an intrinsic inability to replicate it. With Ding Ding gone, we still have tasks at hand. Should we seek the generator first or the mighty zombie? Ah, you fool, you would undoubtedly guess wrong. Let us find the generator first. However, before Lin Xiaodong could reach the rooftop, calamity struck. Lululu appeared to have been ensnared in a coarse bag, and that wretched individual had directly severed Lin Xiaodong's silk thread with a knife. Damn it! In a panicked shout, Lin Xiaodong swiftly unleashed the leopard claw blades, hurtling towards the building's outer wall. Boss! Su Feihong exclaimed, startled by Lin Xiaodong's descent, intending to turn back. Mind your own business. I shall see which fool seeks to end my life. The two leopard claw blades embedded deeply into the cement wall, while the sharp tips of the boots pierced the exterior, allowing Lin Xiaodong to stabilize himself, albeit infuriated. Who dares to snatch my Lululu and threaten my life? Activating Lululu's pet locator within his helmet, he was relieved to find that the satellites were still functioning. The 64 satellites of the Kongmin positioning system continued to operate smoothly. This suggested that although nuclear weapons were absent in this world, at the very least, the missiles of Dongkangmen could still strike their targets. Cautiously, he climbed through a window of a nearby unit and peered inside from the balcony. Two shadowy figures moved within. Living beings? At this moment, Lin Xiaodong had no desire to engage with any living souls. In the midst of a biochemical apocalypse, interactions with the living often ended with them seeking his demise. He retrieved his revolver and tapped it against the glass twice. With the crisp sound of metal striking glass, the occupants inside were evidently startled. Their subsequent actions were peculiar. Upon hearing the noise at their window, rather than investigating, they chose to hide. With a resounding knock, Lin Xiaodong rapped on the window once more, only to witness a rather comical scene unfold inside. Two individuals, one wielding a broom and the other a plastic basin, cautiously approached him. Open the window, quickly, or else, he threatened, brandishing a gleaming thunder god in his hand, which only served to instill greater trepidation in the two within. As the latch on the double sliding window clicked open, Lin Xiaodong, suspended in discomfort, pushed the window open himself. However, being ever cautious, he refrained from stepping inside. He leaned one arm against the windowsill, his feet clad in leopard print boots securely gripping the outer wall, maintaining his balance at the threshold. Step back, stand by the door, he instructed. The man and woman, upon realizing a person had entered, simultaneously felt a wave of relief wash over them. They cast aside the broom and basin, with the woman exclaiming, "Sir, you need not worry. We are survivors. Though our provisions are scant, we believe." Lin Xiaodong, climbing through the window, shook his head. "No, I do not require food. Rather, I present this as a token of gratitude for your willingness to open the window. Furthermore, should you answer my questions, I shall provide you with 2 additional notes. The sight of Lin Xiaodong casually producing a 100 yuan note elicited expressions of astonishment and delight from the pair. After all, super nanocarbon fiber, even in a post-apocalyptic world, retained its value due to its technological and industrial significance. Anyone seeking to craft armor against zombies, bullets, or blades in this biochemical wasteland would find carbon fiber indispensable. Thank you, sir. I shall fetch you some food. Please do close the window. It is rather. She began, seemingly embarrassed to make such a request of their guest, especially while he held a firearm. She struggled to explain. It is simply too cold. Their reaction surprised Lin Xiaodong. How could they be so cold when the gas was still operational? The attire of the two was hardly sufficient for warmth, barely enough to stave off frostbite. Wait a moment, there's another. Azuzu. Hurry and come in, he called out, shifting to open another window, through which a plump Azuzu squeezed through. Upon entering, Azuzu curiously surveyed the 2 occupants before amiably shaking its rotund belly. The couple, clearly familiar with pet spiders, exhibited little astonishment at the sight of Azuzu. The male occupant appeared frail, seemingly a gust of wind could topple him. Yet he bore the cold, remaining in the company of Lin Xiaodong. Once the window was secured, he opened the door leading into the room, which caused a blush to rise on his cheekbones in an awkward rush. It is exceedingly cold. I must be mindful of heat loss. Sir, please, let us retire to the living room to converse. The living room, while not shabby, presented an unexpected array of food. Bean sprouts? Lin Xiaodong was taken aback. In such frigid weather, this couple had managed to cultivate fresh bean sprouts. His eyes brightened. It had been quite some time since he had tasted them. He promptly extracted another 100 yuan note and offered, I adore bean sprouts. I shall purchase them. How could I possibly accept this? It is merely a bowl of bean sprouts. You previously gave me a piece of. The woman fidgeted with her hands, her gaze darting between the banknotes laid on the coffee table by Lin Xiaodong and her husband. It was then that Lin Xiaodong observed that this couple bore an uncanny resemblance to goats. Their lineage must indeed trace back to goats or some similar creature. For only now did he notice the stubble on the woman's chin, as if she had recently shaved. The man pushed Lin Xiaodong's money back towards him, courteously yet firmly stating, Sir, you may not comprehend the extent of your generosity, but this does not align with the fundamental principles of the Eastern Kong Republic. We cannot accept gifts exceeding our worth. You are public servants, and in such times you. Upon hearing Lin Xiaodong's inquiry, Mr. Goat's expression turned serious and resolute. Sir, I am indeed a public servant of the Eastern Kong Republic, and I was once a judge. Even now, I must adhere to my principles. At Mr. Goat's words, Lin Xiaodong could not help but chuckle, his tone laced with sarcasm as he retorted, Upholding principles, Mr. Yang Liming. May I ask if the principle of a judge is merely to tolerate the existence of evil? Chapter 184. Upon entering the building very well, Mr. Yang Liming. I respect your principles, but could you enlighten me on what exactly transpires within this building? In the aftermath of the biochemical apocalypse, it is only the unscrupulous who abandon humanity for profit. It is the steadfast adherence to principles that has allowed human civilization to flourish to this day. One can hardly imagine a regression to primitive society. It is precisely for this reason that those who uphold principles are worthy of respect. Alas, following the catastrophic event, chaos has reigned supreme. The former judge's voice trembled as he spoke, and he even retrieved a handkerchief, dabbing at his spectacles while discreetly wiping the corners of his eyes. There is no need to inquire about his straightforward nature. He may lack emotional intelligence, yet his intellect was commendable. In contrast, Yang Liming's wife appeared to possess a greater emotional acuity. She gently placed her slender hand atop her husband's and began to recount the circumstances concerning the upper floors. It turned out that after the onset of the biochemical disaster, the number of mutants in the residential building was relatively few. The residents banded together, wielding weapons to eliminate the aberrations. However, matters soon took a perplexing turn. Initially, a real estate mogul emerged, brandishing large sums of money to procure weapons from the residents. claiming it was for the establishment of a security team for the building, his intentions purportedly altruistic. The survivors, trusting and naive, complied without a second thought, surrendering their arms. Given the simplicity of the East Kong Republic's populace, they believed that forming a security team was a commendable endeavor, even foregoing payment for their weapons. Once he had secured all the arms, the businessman's demeanor shifted. He began demanding that the security team gather all food supplies, not only those that were abandoned, but also provisions from the survivors' homes. His rationale was compelling. At such a time, it was vital to centralize food storage, a notion that seemed both prudent and far-sighted. Thus, no one opposed him, and the residents willingly handed over their stored food. Next came the control of water and gas, followed by the imposition of fees. Prices escalated from modest to exorbitant, ultimately reaching a point where those without means would face starvation and freezing, while the so-called building committee turned a blind eye to their plight. Exiting Yang Liming's residence, Lin Xiaodong ascended the stairs with a view towards the upper floors. The corridors were nearly deserted. Those residing on the lower levels were likely cautious of the zombies and their rodent counterparts, rarely venturing out. The top 5 floors were now occupied by the building committee and their aides. As Lin Xiaodong made his way to the rooftop, he remained oblivious to the cameras strategically placed throughout the interior, each silently tracking his movements. Even if he had noticed, he would have cared little. He was merely intent on discovering the true nature of this so-called committee, questioning whether it was more repugnant than certain property management firms of the past. "Boss, this fellow is coming upstairs to find us. Perhaps we should." The individual seated at the office desk, sporting a slicked-back hairstyle and black-rimmed glasses, idly toyed with his spindly arms and legs. "What is firearm? Do you not possess one as well? I find it utterly perplexing how the real estate developers of the Eastern Kong Republic manage to exist in such a humble manner. In our empire, to be honest, to Lulu, they are rather inconsequential. It is simply difficult to fathom that in a post-apocalyptic world, there are still individuals who keep pets." Gazing at the creature before him, with its oversized head and singular large eye, along with its slender limbs, he struggles to conceive of any other utility it may possess. "Nevertheless, once it enters my building, it belongs to me." Li Jiakang Musa, as he had always anticipated the possibility of introducing shared space into the Eastern Kong Republic. Unfortunately, the officials here, due to the public declaration of their assets, dare not accept his money. From a certain perspective, the biocatastrophe has afforded him and a select few opportunities previously unseen. The people of the Eastern Kong Republic are far more naive compared to those of the Empire, making them more susceptible to manipulation. For instance, at the onset of the catastrophe, merely uttering the phrase "organize a guard team" effortlessly allowed the collection of weapons from the building as survivors. In truth, the number of survivors in this building was not substantial. Most had failed to escape the city as the disaster unfolded. During the initial stages of the catastrophe, the inhabitants of this building took the lead in eliminating the zombies on their floors. Consequently, individuals from nearby buildings flocked here for safety. Naturally, in this apocalyptic reality, Li Jiakong harbored no grand ambitions. He merely hoped to live comfortably and without undue strain. He dismissed the notion that merchants in the Eastern Kong Republic must conduct their affairs with integrity, or that officials must fulfill their duties with any sense of obligation. He did not venture from the paradise of officials and merchants in the empire merely to endure hardship, continuing to toy with Lulu's slender arms and legs. He dismissively remarked, "In our empire, real estate developers can demolish anyone's property at will. How is it that here, you and your subordinates can thrive so effortlessly after the biocatastrophe?" As he spoke, he tugged at Lulu's elongated arm, indifferent to the creature's pained cries. Indeed, a sycophantic attendant, bent at the waist, expressed, "Boss, thank heavens for the biocatastrophe. Otherwise, we real estate developers would be suppressed by that damned Eastern Kong Republic government, and who knows when we would be able to lift our heads." However, as he spoke, he cast a glance at the monitor. The incoming individual brandished a long knife, sported a shotgun across his chest, and carried a sniper rifle on his back. Hardly the image of a benevolent person. Call the security to block him at the entrance. I refuse to believe. And besides, Do you think those are the consider me a free hire? Although real estate developers are merely merchants. Li Jiakong had never shown mercy during forcible demolitions in the empire. Now, in this end-of-the-world scenario, he understood the utility of violence even better. Yet, those more adept at employing violence were leisurely making their way upstairs. Zhu, isn't it strange? If what Yang Liming says is true, how could unscrupulous real estate developers possibly exist in the Eastern Kong Republic? Zhu, with his 8 large eyes blinking in confusion, could not comprehend why he held such thoughts. Oblivious to the implications, he ascended the stairs 2 steps at a time and soon found himself outside the so-called management office on the top floor. A group of individuals clad in security uniforms, armed with an array of weaponry, stood vigilant in the hallway, their gaze sharp and predatory. How utterly insane you all are. Even in this apocalyptic era, you have resorted to bullying others. I have heard that such conduct in the East Kong Republic is deemed illegal. Downstairs, Lin Xiaodong's commanding voice echoed confidently. I will count to 3, and you will lower your weapons. Otherwise, none of you, the accomplices to this malevolence, will survive. His words left the security personnel exchanging uneasy glances, for he spoke the truth. Should the government become aware of their actions, assuming the government still exists, they would face dire consequences. The laws of the East Kong Republic are notoriously draconian. Even the slightest infraction could lead to public flogging in the streets, let alone more severe offenses. Yet, what recourse do they have? The guns are in the hands of their employer, leaving them powerless. Have the fools upstairs understood? 1, 2, 3. As Lin Xiaodong completed his count, the security guards remained resolute, refusing to lower their firearms, even poised to fire at the figures below. Suddenly, a shadow darted upward from downstairs, instinctively prompting their guns to track the fleeting silhouette. The sound of gunfire erupted, rat-a-tat-tat, as it became evident that these guards lacked military training. Their fingers pressed the triggers relentlessly, oblivious to the necessity of releasing them. A barrage of bullets struck the concrete wall opposite the staircase, sending sparks flying in all directions. Chapter 185. The abnormal ability squad of the heterodox faction, however, the strange figure that surged up from downstairs did not land upon the ground. Instead, it propelled itself against the opposite wall of the corridor and darted like an arrow into the midst of the security personnel, given their indiscriminate gunfire aimed at the survivors. Lin Xiaodong felt no obligation to show them mercy. With his saber drawn, he swiftly felled 2 of them. Seizing the opportunity, Lin Xiaodong showed no compassion towards those who thrived on the misfortune of others. With a single stroke, he rendered the 2 assailants motionless. Their bodies, severed cleanly, fell to the ground without a drop of blood escaping initially. What manner of sorcery is this? Killing without bloodshed. Witnesses of this scene screamed and hastily retreated upstairs, urging one another to flee from the approaching adversaries. From above, unseen individuals began to hurl glass bottles downwards. Strong liquor? The scent was somewhat pleasant. What were they plotting? Firebombs. Perhaps? Before Lin Xiaodong could ponder further, someone tossed down a flaming ball of paper, which ignited upon contact with the alcohol, unleashing a vivid blue flame that quickly spread across the floor. Leaping backward, Lin Xiaodong executed a backflip to land on the ground. They wish to play with fire? Let me show them my acid bomb. He casually tossed a red bottle filled with corrosive liquid, shattering it at its apex. The acid splattered in all directions, eliciting a chorus of wails from above. What the hell? Why are you biting? This creature is transforming into a zombie. Amidst the chaos, the security personnel upstairs were thrown into disarray. In truth, Lin Xiaodong had not intended for the confrontation to become so bloody. His original plan was merely to negotiate with these individuals, to reclaim what was rightfully his, and to implore them to cease their cruelty towards other survivors. Beyond that, he had little interest in their future. Yet, given their blatant disrespect, he felt no need for politeness. One acid bottle subdued the security personnel above, allowing him to leap upward and begin sprinting along the wall with remarkable speed. As an adept in extreme sports endowed with extraordinary abilities, even without his leopard claw boots, Lin Xiaodong could manage a short distance along the wall. Now, equipped with the boots, he could traverse 20 meters effortlessly without risk of falling. The blue flames blazed below, gradually turning crimson, completely blocking the staircase. However, this posed no threat to Lin Xiaodong as he bounded along the wall and soon found himself amidst the chaos of the security personnel. They were in disarray, many having suffered burns from the acidic spray, now transformed into zombies. With a deft sweep of his saber, he severed several heads from their bodies. Among the fallen, 2 bled red while the others oozed black ichor. Upon seeing him approach with his gleaming blade, some individuals knelt in surrender, raising their weapons in desperation, pleading for mercy. No, we dare not. Having been tempered by the battles beyond the city's walls, the act of killing evoked little emotion within him. Moreover, those who sought to enslave others were, in his eyes, devoid of humanity. With a single stroke, he cleaved the weapon from the hand of the kneeling man, rendering it in 2 pieces. The air was thick with tension as he counted to 3, frustration boiling over. Did they regard his words as mere bluster? They were forcing his hand. The security guards before him, devoid of military training or any supernatural abilities, relied solely on their weapons to assert dominance. Yet, confronted by a ruthless figure like Lin Xiaodong, their only recourse was to kneel. Little did they anticipate that, with a single stroke, he would cleave their weapons in twain, swiftly following with another blow that severed a head from its body. Villains were despicable, but those who served them were even more contemptible, having crossed the threshold of violence. It seemed prudent to eliminate them completely. With a flurry of strikes, Lin Xiaodong dispatched 7 or 8 guards clad in their uniforms, regardless of their humanity. With a chilling smile, he taunted, "You dared not speak of fear when committing your misdeeds. Now, in your pleas for mercy, it is too late." As for the remaining guards, he could not be bothered to engage them further. Instead, he tossed a bottle of corrosive acid their way and followed up with a spray. The red liquid seared through the front line, eliciting screams of agony, while those behind, in panic, unleashed a barrage of gunfire upon their fallen comrades. Once the front line lay in disarray, Lin Xiaodong swiftly dealt with the remaining guards, continuing his steady advance towards the top floor. As he walked, he drew his revolver, ensuring that any guards still stirring below, whether human or otherwise, received a bullet to the head. Useless wretches. Meanwhile, a commotion unfolded above, where a burly man was negotiating with the building manager, Li Jiakong. "Li, it's not that we can't assist you, but that individual may be the one from the radio broadcast wreaking havoc in the city center. He commands a tank and has minions capable of controlling level 3 lickers. I implore you, do not provoke him." "What of it? We have an agreement. Should I inform your leader to send someone with more courage?" A man with thick black glasses and slicked back hair issued a threat. The burly man felt a sense of resignation as he glanced at his companion, who was clad in heavy armor and wielding a thick metal rod. In a deep, resonant voice, he declared, "We are many. Why should we fear him?" With a silent sigh, the tall man nodded in acquiescence. Seeing his agreement, the armored figure strode toward the stairwell. Each heavy step reverberated through the floorboards. In a moment, he encountered Lin Xiaodong, who was advancing steadily toward the upper levels. The armored man let out a disdainful grunt and swung his robust metal rod at Lin Xiaodong's head. The weapon sliced through the air with a whistling sound, gleaming ominously. With a gun in one hand, Lin Xiaodong raised his blade with the other to intercept the strike. A resounding clang echoed as the weight of the metal rod sent shockwaves through his arms, nearly dislodging his grip on the blade. The armored assailant possessed 4 times the strength of an ordinary man, an anomaly that left Lin Xiaodong momentarily bewildered. Thankfully, the flexible soles of his boots absorbed some of the force, allowing him to react instinctively, firing his revolver in rapid succession. Yet the armored man remained unfazed. The bullet struck him, sparking and ricocheting off like buzzing insects. Before me stood a being reminiscent of a colossal metal giant, though merely in appearance. He was clad in thick steel plates, seemingly the exterior of an armored vehicle, repurposed as a suit of armor. This individual must possess a power related to strength. Perhaps it is time for my own abilities to undergo an upgrade. As this thought crossed my mind, Lin Xiaodong swiftly leaped back to create distance, his sword poised to strike fiercely at the metallic figure. The man swung a metal staff, which surprisingly did not directly block Lin Xiaodong's blade, but instead struck against the shaft of his weapon. My word, this is troublesome, a master of martial arts with extraordinary strength. This is utterly absurd. Yet, regardless of Lin Xiaodong's inner turmoil, the formidable force of that strike against the shaft rendered even his level 4 strength unyielding. The sword flew from his grasp, and without hesitation, Lin Xiaodong drew his magnum revolver, unleashing a rapid succession of shots at the armored figure. Chapter 186. Like a tenacious dog, the continuous gunfire from the revolver merely impeded the armored man's advance. The 44 caliber bullets struck his heavy armor, failing to penetrate and inflicting no harm whatsoever. In a moment of panic, flames erupted from Lin Xiaodong's hand, conjuring a fireball that danced in his grasp. An ability user. Merely a parlor trick, he mused with a soft sigh, glancing at a young man clad in a flowing white robe, his long hair cascading down to his shoulders. A chilling aura surrounded him as he emanated wisps of white mist from his hands, his voice as frigid as the atmosphere he exuded. With a flick of his fingers, he launched a tiny ice projectile, swifter than the insubstantial fireball, striking Lin Xiaodong's hand and extinguishing the flame instantly. Just as Lin Xiaodong was taken aback, a shadowy figure darted before him, brandishing a pair of gleaming daggers aimed directly at his chest. Dressed in a tight-fitting azure suit, masked and hooded with matching lightweight boots, the intruder bore an uncanny resemblance to a ninja. Could it be another time traveler? Where else could such a ninja emerge on this planet? Lin Xiaodong thought, astonished. With 2 resounding clangs, the scales of his armor repelled the dual strikes. So the matter of speed, is it? Lin Xiaodong sneered, unsheathing his claw blade with a swift motion, directing 2 strikes toward the diminutive figure before him. However, he was outpaced. The agile assailant leapt, delivering 2 swift kicks to Lin Xiaodong's chest, executing a backflip and landing 3 meters away. In a flash, Lin Xiaodong withdrew the .44 Magnum from his waist and fired 2 shots at the small figure. A scream pierced the air as the ninja, clad in dark garb, crumpled against the wall, clutching his wound and desperately scrambling for cover. Observing the downed ninja, Lin Xiaodong shook his head in disbelief. What era are we in? Still playing the ninja game. The young man with the ice manipulation, witnessing Lin Xiaodong's adept marksmanship, quickly sought refuge behind the armored man. With the revolver spinning in his hand, Lin Xiaodong blew away the smoke from the barrel and beckoned the armored figure, wielding a hefty iron rod, with a casual wave. Yet, before any further action could unfold, the sounds of automatic weaponry echoed from the staircase above. As more security personnel descended, their firearms unleashed a barrage of bullets toward Lin Xiaodong. The scales of his armor absorbed the impact of several shots, a fortunate outcome of the non-Newtonian fluid soft armor he had recently equipped. However, the increasing number of adversaries posed an escalating threat. The young man adept in ice manipulation clenched his fists, unleashing 2 large waves of cold energy towards Lin Xiaodong, which swiftly crystallized into 2 ice blades midair. With his arms crossed defensively, Lin Xiaodong braced himself as the ice blades shattered against his forearms. Then came a voice, neither distinctly masculine nor feminine, but strikingly neutral. You've been struck by my ice arrow. Your armor has become brittle. Advance now. Advance? Did you consult my shotgun first? Lin Xiaodong retorted, just as a portly figure came barreling down from the rooftop, resembling a gaping monster, unleashing a thunderous roar toward him. However, no genuine sound emerged. Instead, a wave of what felt like a tangible sound suddenly struck Lin Xiaodong's chest. The king python scales, which could withstand bullets, offered no defense against this force, faithfully transmitting the sonic energy to Lin Xiaodong's body. Although it was merely an intangible sound wave, Lin Xiaodong felt as though he had been struck with immense power, slamming him against the wall. Not only was he severely impacted, but even his specialized suit began to sound alarms. Amidst the red flashes, Lin Xiaodong struggled to catch his breath, the screen displaying multiple soft tissue contusions on his ribs. Dazed, he mentally exclaimed, "What the hell is happening? Where did all these superhumans come from?" He wondered in disbelief how the sound wave had struck so close without causing him to spit blood. The hefty figure above him regarded Lin Chaodong with a curious gaze. However, he lacked the abilities of the armored man who had previously served as a meat shield and did not dare to approach for a closer inspection. Having been thrown against the wall by the sound wave, Lin Chaodong felt as if all his internal organs had been violently struck. Fortunately, the non-Newtonian liquid protective layer absorbed most of the sonic energy. Temporarily immobilized and pressed against the wall, he resembled a mere piece of paper sliding down. He managed to pull out a red bottle from his pocket and hurled it toward the armored man. He realized that this was a complete team of superhumans, adept in both ranged and close combat, with frontal assaults and sneak attacks. The diminutive assailant had already been dispatched, leaving only the armored foe and 2 ranged attackers to deal with. As Lin Chaodong's thrown bottle neared its target, an unexpected flying claw shot forth with lightning speed, snatching the bottle before he could even fire a shot. The red bottle containing corpse acid was swiftly seized. Quite bold of you to challenge us alone. Believing your powers grant you the right to act as a vigilante, remarked the slick-haired Li Jiakong, who plucked the bottle from the grasp of the flying claw. Lin Chaodong, seated on the ground and gasping for air, felt a flicker of excitement upon seeing the flying claw, contemplating how useful it appeared, precisely what he needed. His mind raced at the thought of using corpse acid as a bomb, noting the weaponry adorning Li Jiakong's armor, which suggested he was faring quite well in this apocalyptic world. Li Jiakong wore an expression of superiority, a glint of recruitment in his sidelong glance. In the Empire, many would vie for the opportunity to serve someone of his stature. Yet, Lin Chaodong, languidly seated on the ground, couldn't he help but mock, "So, Mr. Tycoon, does it feel particularly unpleasant to be in Dongkong, where your wealth holds no value? How pitiable it is, once commanding power and influence in the Empire, now reduced to an ordinary existence. Truly, your plight is amusing. Pitiable? Who is truly pitiable here, lying on the ground like a mangy dog?" Li Jiakong's facade of benevolence began to crack, and with a hint of irritation, he gestured, "Kill him." As he issued the command, the armored figure, resembling a mechanized entity, descended the stairs, the heavy thuds of its footsteps causing the rooftop to tremble. "Kid, don't blame me. You've crossed Mr. Li." Yet Lin Chaodong, who had been waiting for this moment, swiftly seized the spider silk. The dispatched Jiao blade instantly returned to his grasp as he suddenly swept it across the ground. The steel reinforcement at the rooftop corner withstood less than a fraction of a second against the Jiao blade before it was severed into 2 pieces. Following this, the cement staircase was also swept through, a segment cleaved away. Finally, the Jiao blade came to rest upon the leg of the man before him. Having abilities is a boon, but using them to bully others is simply unacceptable. As he spoke, the power in his hand intensified, and the glimmer of the blade flashed through the air. Chapter 187, A Different Path. The young man boasted that he wore 5 centimeters of armored steel plates on his legs, impervious even to anti-personnel mines. The armored figure felt no pain, seemingly oblivious to the fact that the blade had already pierced through to the other side of his body. Habitually, he took a step forward, only to find that his lower leg was missing. Having successfully struck, Lin Chaodong executed a roll to evade the armored man descending upon him. Regaining his footing, he swung his blade with vigor, launching himself into the air. "Die, you worthless scum! Kill him!" Amidst the protective presence of several bodyguards clad in black suits, Li Jiakong struggled to maintain his composure, issuing a low growl. Suddenly, bullets cascaded towards Lin Chaodong like a torrential downpour. The rotund man who had unleashed the sonic cannon earlier bellowed towards Lin Chaodong, projecting an invisible wave of sound. With no escape in sight, Lin Chaodong propelled himself towards the stairwell window. The shattering of glass and the sound of twisting metal echoed as Lin Chaodong was forcefully ejected from the window. It was only then that the armored man let out a harrowing scream. "Ah, my leg. That bastard sever my leg. Kill him, kill him." The rotund man wielding the sonic cannon descended a few steps, gazing down at the agonized armored figure, his face pale with shock. Meanwhile, Lin Chaodong plummeted through the air, unanchored, facing downward, unable to halt his descent with his blade against the concrete below. "Surely, I am destined to meet my end in this fall," he thought. Just then, A clanking sound revealed that his blade had caught on the windowsill, slowing his descent after a 5-meter drop. His body, which had been facing the sky, now inverted and hurtled toward the wall. At that moment, the blade flew through the shattered window, but Lin Xiaodong had already managed to approach the wall. With 2 swift punches, his blade embedded itself into the concrete exterior. Even so, his heavy body slid down slightly. At that instant, a young man, eager to seize the blade, poked his head out of the window. "Hurry, that guy hasn't fallen." Upon hearing this, Lin Xiaodong was startled and hurriedly climbed along the wall, hoping to round the corner. The immediate danger seemed minimal. If he could just reach the corner, he would be out of the line of fire and could use his blade and boots to ascend to the rooftop. However, much to his dismay, the young man conjured 2 spheres of icy mist in his hands. Damn it, they truly wish to take my life. He swiftly drew his revolver, intending to deliver a fatal shot to the young man, who, despite being a grown man, was dressed like a fairy. Failing to shoot him would be an affront to the makeup adorning his face. The young man, recognizing Lin Xiaodong's intent, quickly retracted his head. The 2 icy projectiles, trailing chill, flew towards Lin Xiaodong. With 2 resounding impacts, the ice struck his arms. While it did not injure him, a terrifying phenomenon ensued. The cold radiated outward, causing even the concrete wall to visibly crystallize with ice. Subsequently, it became as fragile as ice, shattering into tiny fragments under the pressure of Lin Xiaodong's body, cascading downward. Amidst a chaotic struggle, the sound of shattering glass resonated beneath his feet as someone seized Lin Xiaodong's legs. Realizing he was being grasped, Lin Xiaodong contemplated using his clawed boots to eliminate the individual clinging to him. "Do not struggle. I cannot hold on any longer. Young Li Min, isn't he several floors below? How would he be here?" However, while pondering this, Lin Xiaodong ceased his struggle and was smoothly dragged into a room. Upon entering, the sight of the occupants struck him. Each one appeared gaunt and emaciated. After finally sitting down to catch his breath, Lin Xiaodong inquired with astonishment, "Mr. Lin, I agree with your assertion. As a judge, I should not compromise with evil at the cost of my life. These are the other survivors from upstairs, and they wholeheartedly support your perspective." Glancing at the survivors wielding kitchen knives, rolling pins, and makeshift weapons, Lin Xiaodong's expression turned peculiar. "You intend to confront those people with these weapons?" Yang Li Min, brandishing a rolling pin, asked incredulously, "What? Is that not acceptable?" "Of course, it is utterly unacceptable. I have firearms and blades. You didn't see me just fall from above after being struck." Pondering for a moment, Lin Xiaodong felt perplexed and continued, "With drones flying overhead daily, do you not have a means to signal for help? We lack a signal generator or any form of radio, and the communication range of our phones is insufficient. Furthermore, that drone continually circles around the Imperial community and never approaches us. Curse it all. This is yet another consequence of my actions. Perhaps my conspicuous airborne craft on the rooftop drew too much attention, and that girl, Melanie, is far too persistent." Retrieving his weapon with a thread of silk, he then asked, "Are you the only survivors down here?" Yang Li Min shook his head. "Most merely wish to survive. We're the ones willing to fight back." After a moment of thought, Lin Xiaodong declared, "You all wait here. I shall find my pet. Upon my return, I will share the plan with you." In the hallway, summoning A Zhu with a controller, Lin Xiaodong detached the weapons from his person. "Do you possess a watch?" Upon hearing this question, the individuals in the room exchanged glances, then silently raised their hands in a gesture resembling the number 8. This nearly prompted Lin Xiaodong to slap himself in embarrassment. It seemed he was the only one without an implanted phone in this world. "Very well. You shall take your firearms to the level beneath the building management and find a room. When I instruct you via radio to fire, aim outward cautiously, ensuring not to hit others. Rest assured, I will use a shotgun," Yang Li Min replied as he pumped the shotgun in his hands, the sound echoing loudly. "Thus, you will await my signal here. Additionally, when confronting the building management, do not recklessly throw yourselves into danger. Understood?" Stepping outside, he decisively opened the elevator door and peered upward, finding the space shrouded in darkness with scarcely a glimmer of light penetrating. However, This posed no obstacle for Lin Xiaodong. Equipped with specialized combat gear, as he seamlessly switched to infrared thermal imaging. At the entrance of nearly every floor above, red shadows were visible, indicating that traversing the elevator shaft was out of the question. The exterior of the building was equally daunting. With personnel stationed at every angle, he was rendered utterly visible. When would he ever acquire the power of invisibility? Cursed be the extravagant system. How long must he wait to accumulate the next billion? Quietly closing the elevator shaft door, Lin Xiaodong anxiously paced within the confines of the room. Ascending to the rooftop seemed to hinge on two possible routes, either through the elevator shaft or along the building's exterior. Could it be? Glancing at the rooftop, a new idea sparked in Lin's mind. Returning to the concealed room where Yang Liming and the others were hidden, situated on the 30th floor, merely 5 levels separated them from the rooftop. Thus, reaching the summit may not be an insurmountable challenge after all. Chapter 188. That matter casually leaping onto a table, Lin Xiaodong, clad in leopard print boots, found himself not far from the ceiling. Amidst the puzzled gazes of those around him, he detached the long handle of the Jiao blade. Transforming it into a one-handed sword, he began to insert it slowly into the ceiling. True to its reputation, the Jiao blade met no resistance even against concrete, producing not a single sound, akin to slicing through tofu. Hushing everyone with a gesture, Lin Xiaodong cranked up the audio receiver of his helmet to the maximum. What was that sound? Was it the audacity of daylight? Listening intently, he recalled the numerous brothers who had perished outside. He couldn't afford to forget that it was he who had provided sustenance for these wretches. After discerning the situation, Lin Xiaodong reinserted the Jiao blade into the floorboards, turning it slowly. Still, no sound emerged. To the astonishment of onlookers, he successfully sliced through a thick slab of concrete. However, to his dismay, the slab was quite heavy. Before he could sever it entirely, it plummeted downward. Disaster. The impending crash would surely thwart his ambush plans. Unexpectedly, young Liming lunged forward, catching the falling concrete with both hands. Nearby individuals instinctively reached out to assist. At last, the slab halted just above the table, and a collective sigh of relief swept through the room. Yet when Lin Xiaodong peered upward, he awkwardly withdrew his head. Why on earth were the beds in the Dongkong Republic so low? The hole he had dug was in the corner of the room, right beside a bed. To make matters worse, the bed was exceptionally low, forcing Lin Xiaodong to expose only half of his head. His gaze swept the area, catching the sound of a man striking a woman. Beast! Yang Liming mouthed the word, but what could they do? Were they truly to witness such depravity unfold before their eyes, all while listening to it live? This was certainly not Lin Xiaodong's intention. Having pinpointed the enemy's location, he resolved to dig anew in a different spot. This time, he needn't pause to listen. He positioned the new hole on the inner side of the bed, near the window. Though perilously close to the writhing couple, he had unwavering faith in the Jiao blade. Inserting and rotating, he caught the descending concrete slab and handed it off to Yang Liming and the others who had rushed over. By the time Lin Xiaodong's head emerged, he could easily peek out from the side of the bed. The woman, now shrieking, was bloodied and too weak to struggle. Upon seeing Lin Xiaodong, she was about to scream, but he quickly placed a finger to his helmet, signaling her to remain silent. With great effort, she bit her lip and blinked, conveying her understanding. In her resolve to comply, she ceased her struggles but let out even louder sobs. However, anyone who saw a head suddenly appear from the floor would undoubtedly be startled. One could only hope that this young man wouldn't frighten her into silence, for that would be a grave misfortune. To prevent such a scenario, Lin Xiaodong raised his other hand, brandishing an X-shaped crossbow fitted with short arrows. The tip of her tongue shimmered with the glint of the anesthetic, and before the man could utter a cry, an arrow pierced through his brow. Such a man was not worth sparing. Upon seeing the man motionless, the woman ceased her struggles. She rolled over, casting him off her body, her face a mask of horror as she looked at Lin Xiaodong, her mouth agape as if to scream. Realizing the situation, Lin Xiaodong hastily emerged from the pit, gesturing for her to descend. The woman approached the pit and peered down, where she found the eager gaze of Yang Liming. She recognized him as the trustworthy neighbor from the floor above, a judge. Sending Lin Chaodong a grateful glance, she cautiously extended her leg to descend into the room below. As soon as she left, Lin Chaodong leaped onto the bed and used his blade to slice through the floorboards. He began by gently puncturing a small hole to listen for sound from above. The lamentations of a woman echoed through the space, expressing concern over the fate of her and her child now that a man had been slain by a scaled killer. Lin Chaodong felt a pang of anxiety. The woman above was clearly a security guard, and she was not on their side, especially given her mention of a child, an ominous sign. Halting his actions, Lin Chaodong paced anxiously within the room, muttering under his breath about the futility of her tears. After all, she was merely a building manager's security, likely to gain little from her current plight. Now that the man was dead, it appeared she had an opportunity to find another. With a sense of helplessness, he listened to her incessant sobs. After circling the room a few times, Lin Chaodong suddenly slapped his helmet in realization. What a dullard he was. Who said he could only escape through the bedroom? The bathroom was right there. He quietly opened the door and stepped onto the sink. Initially, he had avoided the bathroom due to its tiled surface, fearing the noise from his blade would be too loud. To his surprise, even when cutting tile, the blade emitted no sound. Perhaps I could become a tile setter, he mused besides me. Well, there's Su Feihong, but who else possesses such a fine blade? He punctured a small hole, and immediately, voices echoed from above. What are you still crying about? He was no saint. He was fooling around with other women upstairs. And now, in this apocalypse, it's imperative to gather oneself and seek another man for support. As the woman in the bathroom finished her lament, she slammed the bathroom door, finally granting Lin Chaodong the opportunity to continue cutting tiles. In a moment, he carved out a larger hole, and apart from the now diminished sobs, there were no further sounds. He stretched out, half his body protruding from the upper bathroom. He held his breath, knowing that if the woman opened the door, a scream would undoubtedly ensue, leaving him with no escape in this wretched place. Fortunately, she remained lost in her sorrow. Continuing her cries, Lin Chaodong carefully stepped onto the sink again and resumed his work on the floor, beginning with another small hole. Heaven help me, he silently prayed, hoping she wouldn't encounter any misfortunes. Listening intently, he discerned no other sounds emanating from the bathroom. Chapter 189. She was too nervous with a bold and carefree spirit. He began to excavate the cement and floor tiles. However, as he leaned in, he was taken aback. What the hell? Shouldn't you put on your pants first? Before him stood a woman, her underwear hanging at her ankles. As she gazed at Lin Chaodong, she seemed oblivious to the state of her attire, desperately covering her mouth with her hands, tears glistening in her striking green eyes. Lin Chaodong felt an urge to voice his frustration. Couldn't they engage in something other than such matters? The red hue of her underwear was quite distinctive and alluring, with varying shades of crimson layered beautifully, captivating and enticing. To his astonishment, he realized she was still a virgin. How could this be? Yet, this was not the moment for such thoughts. He raised a finger to his lips, signaling her to be quiet. Seeing his gesture, the woman fervently nodded, likely having watched enough horror films to understand that any scream could spell doom for her. As Lin Chaodong leapt to the upper floor, she instinctively recognized who he was. Clearly, she was also a victim and bore no sympathy for the building's management. However, what neither of them anticipated was that the bathroom door would suddenly swing open. The woman's anxious gaze turned towards Lin Chaodong, as if imploring him to convince her that he had not been summoned by those outside. Lin Chaodong nodded, once more drawing his small crossbow aimed at the bathroom door. Creaking ominously, the door opened slowly, revealing a figure outside, engaged in conversation. Are you really that impatient? Let me hurry her up. This girl is fresh from downstairs. She's probably hiding in there, crying. Before he could finish, he turned and caught sight of Lin Chaodong aiming his crossbow. Instinctively, he opened his mouth to shout. Yet, Lin Chaodong would not allow him the luxury of a warning. He squeezed the trigger, the bolt striking the man's neck at point-blank range. The man, unable to utter a sound, clutched the short arrow embedded in his throat, leaning against the door frame as he slowly crumpled to the ground. As he fell, the onlooker outside, puzzled, remarked, "No way. Even if she is slightly more beautiful than others, You wouldn't go that far. What did she show you? As the man collapsed, revealing the arrow in his neck, his exclamation escaped his lips. He then turned to retrieve his discarded trousers, where his holster lay. However, in the next moment, the bathroom door creaked open, revealing Lin Xiaodong. If I were you, I wouldn't move recklessly. It could end very badly for you. Hearing Lin Xiaodong's voice, the man froze. His hand poised to grab the gun. Gradually, he raised his hands and turned around. Wow, while everyone else is flustered, you seem to be preparing for something. Noticing Lin Xiaodong's crossbow pointed suggestively at him, he feigned calmness, attempting to explain, it's just too nervous, with another swift motion. Lin Xiaodong readied his crossbow again. The man, caught off guard by Lin Xiaodong's sudden aggression, pivoted to seize his weapon. It was but a trivial action that caused Lin Xiaodong's crossbow bolt to miss its intended target, embedding itself with a thud into the headboard, its fletching quivering. The moment Guanan's hand grazed the gun's grip, a certain individual sprang forth like a leopard. After all, the combination of a level 1 speedster ability and the leopard claw boots had propelled Lin Xiaodong's velocity beyond anyone's expectations. In the ensuing chaos, the blade of the leopard claw was unleashed with a swift hiss, striking from behind and piercing directly into Guanan's lung. Guanan could only emit a series of choking sound from his throat, blood spilling forth in desperate gasps, yet he could not produce a single coherent cry. Damn it, he nearly exposed himself. It was only then that Lin Xiaodong turned around, catching sight of a woman emerging from the bathroom, shockingly still without her pants. Bare from the waist down, she now covered her mouth with both hands. Hey, you should. He began, but reconsidered, opting against taking any risks. Instead, he discreetly retrieved a needle from another arm guard, holding it quietly in his hand. You are truly beautiful. Do you know why I infiltrated this place? I came specifically to rescue you. From now on, you need not suffer harm. I will. As he drew closer to the woman, he noticed her fear somewhat lessening. He placed his hand gently on her shoulder, and with a delicate prick from the needle at her neck, her eyes widened in terror. She lowered her hands from her mouth, attempting to scream, but in the next moment, the tranquilizer provided by Azuz took effect, rendering her limp on the floor. Casting a glance around, Lin Xiaodong kicked Guanan aside at the bathroom entrance and repositioned the woman back onto the toilet. Simultaneously, he set a countdown timer for 60 seconds in his helmet, hoping that the woman sitting on the toilet. No, judging by her age, she appeared to have just reached adulthood. Even if the general allure of young women was undeniable, would not awaken prematurely and scream. Once again, he grasped the dagger and began his task of breaching the wall, silently praying, "Please, let me not encounter any more troublesome situations." As he created a small hole, he listened intently. Fortunately, there was not a sound to be heard from the bathroom. It was best if no foolish girl appeared, unaware of her state of undress. With a swift rotation of the dagger, he cut through the floor, catching and releasing. He was uncertain if the room above was unoccupied, but there was no noise emanating from there. Before ascending, Lin Xiaodong glanced at the young woman seated on the toilet. She lacked the poise of Melanie and was not nearly as tempting as a fully ripened meal. Her beauty was striking, yet regrettably. With a firm push from his leopard claw boots and exertion of his arms, he found himself in the bathroom of the upper floor in the next moment. Excellent. Splendid. The one below was on the verge of awakening. He needed to hurry. He estimated that only 2 more floors remained before reaching the rooftop. According to his calculations, the building manager, Mr. Li, along with his confidants and several other extraordinary individuals, should be residing at the top level. In this case, it might not even be necessary to ascend to the rooftop. He could potentially catch them off guard from the bathroom. Damn the building management. Did they think they were some kind of property management? Lin Xiaodong himself held little animosity towards property managers, but back in that world, when they initially sought trouble, he had seized the opportunity to teach them a harsh lesson. Since that incident, the property management has treated him with utmost courtesy. This was due to his previous confrontation with the manager, during which he placed a knife to the man's throat. He had no desire to create trouble. Anyone who dared to cause him distress would find their entire family facing divine judgment. The property manager, a sensible individual, ensured that the water meter readings were no longer conducted thereafter. However, Lin Xiaodong was never one to take advantage of others. After checking the water meter, he would personally settle the bill. With a sense of relief, he resumed his task of drilling a hole in the bathroom. Just as he finished, before he could ascend, he heard a commotion at the door, followed by a rustling sound. "Hey, why the rush? The dead guy just passed, and already they come looking for you," remarked one voice. Another male voice, breathless, replied, "That fellow in the scale armor is truly formidable. If it weren't for my quick thinking, I would be joining your deceased companion by now." As they conversed, they moved towards the bathroom. Lin Chaodong inwardly cursed their kindred spirits, both equally unsavory. Before he could articulate his thoughts, he quietly locked the bathroom door, then swiftly climbed onto the wash basin, making his way directly to the 34th floor. Chapter 190. The real estate developer with 3 hands the bathroom door was pounded heavily. "Who is it? Who the hell is in there? If you don't respond, I'm going to break the door down." Just then, the little foreign horse on the lower floor, who had no idea how to pull up his pants, woke up and, as Lin Chaodong had anticipated, let out a piercing scream. "Old Yang, shoot! Quick, shoot!" With that command, the sound of a shotgun firing echoed through the corridor, followed by the sharp crack of an old rifle. Indeed, the banging on the door ceased, and shortly after, the front door creaked as someone bolted out. At this moment, Lin Chaodong was merely 1 floor away from reaching the top. He disregarded whether anyone was in the upstairs bathroom or the potential mishaps that could occur, and instead plunged a knife through the floorboards, swiftly carving out a large circle. The circular section of the floor fell away, and Lin Chaodong surged upward. However, to his utter astonishment, as he burst through the hole in the bathroom floor, he heard someone outside exclaim, "Don't go downstairs. That place is likely a diversion. Everyone, hold your positions." Upon hearing that voice, Lin Chaodong couldn't help but chuckle, for it was none other than Boss Lee from the building management. "Haha, kid. Did you not expect that I possess a dragon blade and could even dig through the floor?" Despite his exhilaration, Lin Chaodong cautiously eased down the doorknob. The bedroom was empty, and he stealthily made his way toward the living room. Suddenly, voices erupted from the entrance of the residence. "Boss, we've discover holes carved into the floor on every level. That kid must have come up from the house." One hand pointed at the dragon blade, while the other held a revolver, his thumb gently shifting the hammer into position, ready to fire at a moment's notice. "What do you mean he entered the house? How could he have possibly gotten in?" "Boss, the guy must have used some method to break through the floor." It was said to be completely silent. Just then, the sound of a chair toppling over was heard, indicating someone had hurriedly stood up from behind the desk, hastily asking, "What did you say? Silent holes in the floor? How is that possible? I'm a damn real estate developer. I've never heard of such a thing." Before he could finish his incredulity, Lin Chaodong, wielding the revolver, appeared behind him and coolly remarked, "Fool, it's you who lacks experience." There were only a few individuals in the room, likely having spent years honing their abilities outside. Here, most were bodyguards in black suits employed by the Lee family. Seeing the situation, the bodyguards attempted to take action with the assault rifles slung across their chests, yet they were no match for Lin Chaodong's rapid fire. In that unexpected moment, Lin Chaodong leaned his forearm against his hip, his hand slightly raised to draw his weapon. Employing the world-renowned cowboy quick-draw technique, he fired in just 295 seconds. Of course, Lin Chaodong did not possess such remarkable skill, but he could manage a swift first shot. Before anyone could register that his gun barrel had barely pointed at them, the gun fired. The bodyguard struck in the forehead, stared wide-eyed, mouth agape in silence, until a trickle of blood split his face in two, and he slowly collapsed. "Who else?" With a sharp reprimand, Lin Chaodong plunged his left-hand dagger into the floor, resting his palm on the revolver's hammer. Indeed, he could unleash the remaining 5 bullets in a mere 2 seconds, reminiscent of a gunslinger. While this feat paled in comparison to Bill Uzi's record of 6 seconds to fire 6 rounds in 1988, it was nevertheless sufficiently swift. Despairing, Li Jiakong watched as his seemingly impressive bodyguards raised their hands, slowly placing their weapons on the ground. "You scoundrels charge me so much each month," he cursed his dark-clad protectors with a frosty demeanor, raising his voice in hopes that someone outside would hear and come to his rescue. "Louder, and if someone pushes through that door, I'll blow your head off first. You are so worthless that you're not even fit to be zombies." Lin Chaodong, who harbored a deep disdain for the public sharing of space, felt a similar loathing for the lowly real estate developer whose name bore a resemblance to the contemptible man before him. Yet regrettably, he could not blow his head off. To Lin Chaodong's astonishment, Li Jiakong appeared unafraid of death, continuing to berate his bodyguards. "Do you still possess any sense of professionalism?" he shouted. Perhaps his reprimands had some effect, as one bodyguard, attempting to act discreetly, subtly raised his arm, intending to use a concealed weapon hidden in his sleeve. It was merely a single-shot pistol strapped to his arm, ready to fire with a flick of the wrist. However, Lin Chaodong would not grant him the opportunity to act. It was not merely his skill, but rather the inherent surveillance capabilities of his combat suit that alerted him to the enemy's movements, no matter how minute. Before the man could make his move, Lin Chaodong pulled the hammer and fired. Yet, what he did not anticipate was that the cunning Li Jiakong had only been inciting his bodyguard with words. The true attack came from himself. A small, agile claw shot from Li Jiakong's arm, aimed directly at Lin Chaodong's revolver. However swift it might be, it still required time to travel, and Lin Chaodong's wrist twitched, releasing his shot a fraction of a second earlier. The nimble claw shattered in midair. In the stairwell, amidst the chaos of powers and gunfire, Lin Chaodong had not discerned the full extent of the situation, even harboring a certain admiration for the clever claw, contemplating its utility after dispatching its wielder. Especially as Li Jiakong clutched his arm, howling in pain, Lin Chaodong found himself perplexed. Upon closer inspection, he realized that the so-called claw was not a claw at all, but rather a delicate hand, trailing behind it a white, nerve-like appendage. What the hell, 3 hands? Is that not the mark of a thief? He wondered. However, it dawned on him that while the emergence of supernatural abilities might correlate with his profession, why on earth would a real estate developer possess 3 hands? Reflecting on the matter, clarity struck him. Did real estate developers not conspire with officials to acquire land? Did they not employ morally and legally dubious methods to coerce relocations? Did they not collude with criminal elements for forced demolitions? The animosity towards the wealthy was not mere envy. It was a profound hatred for those who had a third, thieving hand. Fortunately, I have heard Yang Liming state that the government of the Eastern Kong Republic was rather astute, as it consistently refrained from endorsing proposals founded on coercive appropriation. It is said that, had it not been for the cataclysmic biohazard, this individual would likely have been expelled from the country by now. Should the opportunity arise to venture to the empire in the future, I shall not hesitate to eliminate those unscrupulous real estate tycoons. Regardless of whether I ever set foot in the empire, Lin Chaodong has already set forth this grand ambition. After all, scoundrels like Li Jiakong are truly unworthy even of becoming the undead. Is there anyone else? Chapter 191. The despicable one destined for such fate this time. Everyone earnestly raised their hands, fearing to oppose any further. Upon discovering the captives, the mandatory employment system was activated. With the activation of the wealthy benefactor system, Lin Chaodong accessed the prisoner interface. For reasons unknown, this time the system provided the life histories of the bodyguards. After a brief glance, Lin Chaodong's revolver fired once more, as he assisted Li Jiakong in the heinous act of seduction. Bang! The head of the bodyguard tilted back, his skull shattered. Even though the trust system guaranteed that such mistakes could not be repeated under forced employment, individuals of such moral depravity, who contradicted Lin Chaodong's ethical standards, must be eliminated without a second thought, rendering their skills irrelevant. Assisting Li Jiakong in colluding with violent demolition forces. Bang! Not a single one associated with such brutal actions could be spared. They were less than human, beneath even dogs. Assaulting individuals injured by Li Jiakong's vehicle. Those sycophants were more detestable than dogs. They deserved death. Bang! Another fell. The remaining 3 bodyguards, tears welling in their eyes, were left to ponder just how many more lives this armored marksman would claim before he was satisfied. As for Li Jiakong, clutching his arm, fear had paralyzed him into inaction. He understood that his demise was imminent, yet he had not anticipated such a ruthless figure to harvest his life. Of the remaining 3 bodyguards, Lin Chaodong felt a sense of relief. despite their past misdeeds, they had not crossed his bottom line. Thus, they could be forcibly employed rather than executed on the spot. Upon reviewing their skills, none surpassed the rank of a mediocre sniper. However, one named Du lied. A lieutenant from the 35th Ranger Battalion's Special Reconnaissance Unit seemed to possess potential. The other two hail from the Marine Corps and the Army, respectively. Lin Xiaodong summoned his newly hired subordinates. Yes, Commander. From this moment forth, you shall lead this three-man tactical team. The other two, apprehend this scoundrel. Once we return home, I shall deal with this unscrupulous real estate developer. If Li Jiakong understood the meaning of brutality, he should have begun to tremble with fear at this moment. By the way, where's my pet? You know, the green ball with a large eye that enjoys mischief. Only then did Li Jiakong realize that it was not his subordinate's folly that had brought this harbinger of death upon them, leading him to slaughter his way up from the ground floor and uproot his very foundation. He longed to deliver a resounding slap to that sycophant, but alas, that wretch had already been slain by Lin Xiaodong. If possible, Li Jiakong would have loved to whip that corpse. Released from a bag, the little creature, upon spotting Lin Xiaodong, immediately leapt onto his shoulder, weeping profusely. When it cried, tears shot from its single large eye in an arc, with a gentle slap to the area near its leg. After all, it had no backside. Lin Xiaodong admonished, "Stop your blubbering. Can't you even call for help? Next time, I'll strap a radio to your back. Remember to shout for help if such a situation arises again. Now, let me first resolve the chaos outside before we continue." The door of Li Jiakong's office was forcefully kicked open from within, and the first person to emerge was clad in scale armor. This unexpected sight momentarily stunned the guards stationed outside, leaving them perplexed as to how this individual had ascended to the top floor. As for the gunfire emanating from the office, they refrained from entering to investigate, as Li Jiakong often engaged in inhumane activities. They felt reassured in their posts, indifferent to the sounds of gunfire, weeping, or other disturbances within. Upon seeing Lin Xiaodong emerge, they stood in bewilderment, unsure of how to react, until three bodyguards followed him out, guns in hand, with two of them escorting Li Jiakong. It was then that they realized a serious incident had occurred. Did they all wish to perish alongside Li Jiakong? Very well, those who sought death could step forward. I shall fulfill your wish. With a nonchalant remark, nearly all the bodyguards fell silent. Naturally, they did not wish to die. Those who chose to follow a path of wrongdoing in a post-apocalyptic world were undoubtedly devoid of principles. Individuals like Yang Liming, who would rather cultivate bean sprouts than compromise, were always deserving of respect. Lin Xiaodong held no regard for those lacking principles and did not extend them any respect. A gunshot rang out, striking the wall near the head of a guard who had been slow to react. Lin Xiaodong calmly inquired once more, "Do you wish to die alongside that scoundrel?" This time, there was no need for him to ask. All the guards hastily relinquished their weapons. The young man with ice abilities quickly summoned frost, but was elbowed aside by a burly man wielding soundwave powers, his fierce gaze effectively halting any further action. Behind them stood a peculiar little figure, but the armored giant was nowhere to be seen, presumably bleeding out and perishing. Lin Xiaodong felt a twinge of regret. He suspected that the giant might have possessed extraordinary strength. With his own abilities only at level 4, he guessed that the giant's powers were likely at level 8 or above. If he could forcibly recruit such talent, it would indeed be a valuable asset. He regarded the other surviving ability users with disdain. Had he not wished to keep his divine wealth system a secret, he would have buried them with cash long ago. Whether it was sound waves or ice powers, a ton of cash would suffice to eliminate them. If not 1 ton, then 10, or even 100. After all, his wealth was boundless. He could easily construct a carbon fiber planet with his riches. As expected, the system promptly displayed the forced recruitment interface, complete with resumes. Given the circumstances, Lin Xiaodong felt compelled to select carefully. He did not consider himself a paragon of virtue, nor would he aid anyone in need back in his previous life, as he lacked resources. However, having crossed into this realm, he would not hesitate to act decisively when given the opportunity. Bang, bang, bang. For those who perpetrated atrocities, be it aiding and abetting, committing acts of sexual violence, cannibalism, fraud, human trafficking, or extortion. Regardless of whether their crimes were committed during or after the catastrophe, Lin Xiaodong bestowed a bullet upon each of them. Such filth, such scum, had no right to exist in this world. The fact that these individuals could ally with someone like Li Jiakong in the aftermath of a biochemical disaster spoke volumes about their character. In adherence to these principles, the result was that out of 30 security personnel, only 2 remained standing, their legs trembling as if sifting through chaff, unable to even lift their collars. Fear not, for following the officer is indeed your fortune. At this moment, Du Lai displayed a somewhat pompous demeanor. After all, being a subordinate to the esteemed god of wealth was certainly preferable to being subjected to brutal eradication by the system or having one's skull shattered by the god of wealth's disdain. This, esteemed gentleman, how shall I address you? As Lin Xiaodong finished dealing with the security guards. It was remarkable that those who had been quaking in fear mere moments ago now stood at attention, referring to him as officer. This transformation led the ability users to deduce that the armored figure was also endowed with powers. Among the foundational tenets of the Supernatural Alliance, one principle stands paramount: to recruit all ability users for the service of the Alliance whenever possible. Chapter 192. A soulless abnormal ability user. Upon hearing the words of the voice wave giant, Lin Xiaodong raised a hand, declaring, "Do not presume familiarity. I do not know you. However, you must clarify your relationship with this scoundrel before we proceed." The 5 newly recruited soldiers, observing Lin Xiaodong's demeanor, aimed their assault rifles at the abnormal ability users with a casual intent. Should Lin Xiaodong gesture, irrespective of their abilities, they would promptly bury them beneath a hail of bullets. I am an ability user, and we are members of the Abnormal Alliance, tasked with assisting him in protecting the people within this building. Is striking me also part of your mission to protect those in this building? These words struck deep at the heart of the voice wave giant, causing the frost ability user behind him to summon ice anew. With a swift motion, Lin Xiaodong's revolver rose to his hip, and in a mere 295 seconds, he shattered the giant's palm with a single shot. See, individuals like him are contemptible. Strike him until he no longer recognizes himself. If he dares retaliate, eliminate them all. Upon hearing Lin Xiaodong's words, the voice wave giant understood that he was dealing with someone who, if provoked, would annihilate entire families without hesitation. He quickly stammered, "Master, my brother was in the wrong. We are at fault. On behalf of the Abnormal Alliance, you dare retaliate, and I will eliminate you first," he warned the young frost user, who had initially intended to counterattack, but now cowered, clutching his head and crouching down. Despite his capitulation, Lin Xiaodong's subordinates received no orders to halt. They pounced upon him, delivering a flurry of punches and kicks, mercilessly striking him with the rifle butts. Du Lai permitted his men to act while he held onto Li Jiakong's collar, his gun ever trained on the voice wave giant. Lighting a cigar, Lin Xiaodong placed it between his lips. Before he could ignite it, the voice wave giant produced a lighter and sparked it to life for him. "May I inquire your esteemed surname? Regardless of my name, elucidate your connection with Li Jiakong, how you entered the city, and your future plans. Should we meet again, what actions will you undertake?" Lin Xiaodong harbored no intention of bullying others, nor could he tolerate the Abnormal Alliance's unscrupulous methods, devoid of moral distinction. Had they been mere commoners with nothing to their names, following the ancestral wisdom, they should have remained self-reliant. Yet now, endowed with a system and multiple abilities, he aspired not merely to benefit the world, but at the very least, to safeguard a few communities. "Sir, it is as follows. We, of the Abnormal Alliance, advocate for the unification of all ability users across the realm." That phrase sounds rather familiar. As he puffed on his cigar, Lin Xiaodong remained silent, listening intently. "We are in a partnership. We offer protection in exchange for sustenance. Hence, we were delivered into the city by drone. Sir, I have observed your fireball technique. Does this obedient command not resemble a form of mind control?" At this juncture, Lin Xiaodong gleaned a general understanding of the Abnormal Alliance's modus operandi, exchanging protection for resources, while simultaneously gathering those knowledgeable of abilities. From what he discerned, the Abnormal Alliance sought to establish a government of ability users, reigning above ordinary citizens. However, Lin Xiaodong did not concur with this matter. He removed the cigar from his lips and exhaled a dense plume of smoke. No, I have no interest. In this apocalyptic world, I merely wish to survive alongside my own people, devoid of concern for your ideologies. We may consider exchanging supplies in the future, but it is best to refrain from discussing other matters. Upon hearing Lin Xiaodong's declaration, the burly man became alert and questioned. What? Do you actually agree with the anti-variant faction's ideas? Those individuals lack resolve and are not accepted by ordinary people. Lin Xiaodong vehemently shook his head at this binary division. Have you all overindulged? Surviving is what truly matters. It is not yet the time for politicians to extend their influence. Whether you belong to the pro-variant or anti-variant faction, I am not interested. The color on the burly man's face softened slightly, but as he prepared to speak again, Lin Xiaodong interjected, "Those who live in such a manner, devoid of soul, will not use me as a pawn. My principle is simple. Those who treat me well, I shall reciprocate in kind. Should anyone glare at me, I will extract their eyes." The chill in Lin Xiaodong's words sent a shiver down the burly man's spine. Discarding the cigar, but Lin Xiaodong calmly inquired, "Do you understand?" With that, he ceased further discussion and instructed his subordinates. "All right, make him a pig's head. If he dares to act blindly again, a bullet will be his end. Now, bring that armored man and the little one here." "My lord, you see." Upon sensing the coldness in Lin Xiaodong's voice, the burly man seemed to grasp his intentions and attempted to intervene. "However, the little one must be eliminated. If you obstruct me, I will have no choice but to eliminate you as well. Originally, both you and that young man participated in the attack, so logically, you should be punished. I only spared you to convey a message. Remember to adhere to my rules next time we meet." Feeling that he had said enough, Lin Xiaodong approached the armored man and the little one with his revolver in hand. Meanwhile, Dulide remained motionless, his assault rifle aimed steadily at the burly man. The burly man exchanged glances with the young one, both realizing they could not save the armored man and the little one today. As Lin Xiaodong took a couple of steps, he suddenly turned and asked, "Why do I feel that little one doesn't seem to be from Dongkong Republic?" "They are from the dwarf clan of Lon Island. That island is populated entirely by dwarves, distinct from the people of other nations, and they do not intermarry." "I see," Lin Xiaodong mused. "It seems I shall have to ask Meyer to enlighten me on world geography and history. Otherwise, I might as well implant a mobile device." However, he soon abandoned this thought, considering the rampant zombie virus and the uncertainty of maintaining sterile conditions. Besides, he was an extraterrestrial. As for Zhongli's family also having implanted mobile devices, Lin Xiaodong fundamentally did not consider them to be of the same ilk as those scoundrels. With the forced purchase option activated, he clearly observed, as he had surmised, that while it was not some ninjutsu, the little 1's ability was indeed rapid assault, and it was merely a level 3 rapid assault. Recalling the 2 strikes the young man delivered to his chest, not only was he incredibly swift upon approach, but the speed of his attacks was so rapid that Lin Xiaodong had no opportunity to defend himself. If this was merely a level 3 rapid strike, one might wonder how astonishing the attack speed could be at level 10. Such rapid techniques are likely suited to weapons like the leopard claw blade, which is perfectly designed for such swift assaults. It appears that this technique cannot be employed with a long sword, as it seems ill-suited for rapid strikes. Completely uninformed about martial arts, Lin Xiaodong could only set aside this question for later, intending to inquire with Su Feihong upon his return. Chapter 193. Words of no use shall be severed. Lin Xiaodong was oblivious to the concept of a swift attack. Instead, he opted for a forced purchase of 1,500,000. With a quick pivot of his revolver, he shattered the little man's skull. Observing the figures displayed on the system interface alongside his abilities, he noted, balance, infinite, expenditure, 109, 614, 583, intelligence, 12 weak, constitution, 23 medium, agility, 22 medium, endurance, 25 medium, perception, 20 medium, skills, close quarters combat, handgun rapid fire, tactical assault, sniper training, underwater special operations, wilderness survival, parachuting, extreme sports expertise, automobile repair, level 3. Lock picking, level 5. Skillful drug administration, observation of women, delay technique, level 2. Female emotional judgment, level 5. Swift attack, level 3. His bio abilities included heart extraction, fear sensation. Fast legs, level 1. Eagle eye technique, level 4. Fireball technique, level 3. And strength mastery, level 4. Though he'd spent an extra 1,500,000, he'd gain a level 3 swift attack skill and a slight boost in agility. While the improvement was modest, it was nonetheless a gain. Yet, upon witnessing the zeros in the expenditure figure, a sense of helplessness washed over him. As for the demise of the little man, Lin was not inherently cruel. However, like any ordinary individual, he was a person of clear convictions and staunch principles. Since the little man sought his demise, there was no reason to spare him. More crucially, he could not allow anyone to discover that he possessed a divine system capable of purchasing abilities. Just after concluding these actions, a throng of individuals surged onto the rooftop, brandishing an assortment of paraphernalia. The most ludicrous sight was that of the little pony, who had been so frightened that he dared not even retrieve his trousers, now brandishing a high-heeled shoe as he rushed forward. Lin had little interest in anyone else, focusing his attention on the foremost figure, Yang Liming. From now on, this building belongs to you. The weapons and ammunition, aside from what the 5 of you carry, are also yours. Additionally, if anyone has service robots, I require 3, 4, or perhaps 8, as I have quite a few voracious eaters at home. However, to Lin Xiaodong's astonishment, Yang Liming clutched his arm with an unwavering grip, pleading, "Mr. Lin, you cannot abandon us. If you leave us, how shall we survive? What on earth is happening? I am not a savior, you know. Mr. Lin, you cannot simply leave us like this." Lin Xiaodong spread his hands, facing the desperate pleas before him, feeling the situation was becoming increasingly unmanageable. "Mr. Yang, with your weapons, you can establish a lookout on the rooftop and signal for help upon sighting a drone. With your numbers, I trust the drones will not ignore your calls." A hint of shame flickered across Yang Liming's face. "Mr. Lin, he gestured towards Li Jiakong and the remaining 2 abilities users. "It was they who used drones to take away the food we had gathered. Without you, we cannot survive." Confronted by faces brimming with earnest hope, Lin Xiaodong shook his head. "I am sorry, but this matter." Refusing such heartfelt pleas proved to be a formidable challenge, particularly when faced with individuals of such unadulterated sincerity. Unless he undergoes what is termed social refinement, enduring numerous deceptions while justice remains unattainable, his sharp edges will inevitably be dulled. This is what some individuals refer to as maturity. Nonsense maturity, which amounts to mere silence or collusion, is nothing but a resignation to the absence of justice. However, that pertains to a bygone era. Who now dares to encourage Lin Xiaodong toward maturity? The first system disallows it, and secondly, the dagger in Lin Xiaodong's grasp permits no such thing. He could easily sever a head and leave it cooling outside. "I implore you, on behalf of the elderly and the young who have barely survived above, I beseech you." Casting a glance at the Soundwave man and the young man reduced to a swollen visage, Lin Xiaodong smacked his lips, appearing contemplative. "Are you 2 of any use? If not, I shall dispose of you." With that, he returned the cigar to his mouth, exuding a readiness to draw his blade. "We are useful, indeed very useful," they hastily replied, the young man eager to interject. "Oh, you've learned to answer in unison, have you? Very well. You shall now strive to seek supplies, food, water, from other buildings to sustain these people." A glance at Yang Liming and the others followed, as Lin Xiaodong calculated the drone's patrol schedule. Half a month should suffice. That would be enough for them to eat for that duration. Turning to face Yang Liming, he stated, "Trust me, the drones above can guide you to the Air Force Base, where military protection will ensure your safety. Moreover, in half a month, the drones will have conducted numerous patrols. You shall inevitably be rescued." Seeing Lin Xiaodong resolutely decline the role of savior, Yang Liming felt a tinge of disappointment. However, considering the safety of the Air Force Base compared to the city, he chose not to persist. "Old man, you dare address me as old man? Your entire family consists of old men. Could you not speak respectfully? I call you friend, mate, or brother. Must you insist on rank and hierarchy?" Lin Xiaodong found the Soundwave man's address, seemingly from another time and space, rather distasteful. He had no desire to be anyone's superior. He merely wished to survive in this apocalyptic world. The notion of asserting dominance over others was utterly foreign to him. The Soundwave man, momentarily at a loss for words due to Lin Xiaodong's retort, felt that this individual was indeed quite difficult to please. However, reflecting on his words, it seemed to convey a sense of equality, a state where no one could be bullied, a reality reminiscent of the period before the bioweapon catastrophe in the Donkong Republic. In a time where one could live as equals, who would wish to serve as another's dog? Yet this was a bioweapon apocalypse, for the sake of survival. All other considerations must be set aside. Those who wish to see others as dogs merely occupy resources and compel subservience through those means. Such individuals were once deemed psychologically immature by the Ministry of Civil Affairs of the Donkong Republic. As the Soundwave man pondered this, Lin Xiaodong continued to grumble. Now I have found a service-oriented domestic robot. Ostensibly, I should have returned home to rest, yet I am still tasked with procuring food and water for them. At this juncture, Lin Xiaodong, filled with rage, glared at Li Jiakong and unleashed a torrent of invective. This mess is all you're doing, you scoundrel. Yet here I am, having to clean up after you, damn nuisance. His fury intensified with each word, and he retaliated with a flurry of slaps upon Li Jiakong's face. You truly are a wretch. When I return, I shall make you suffer like never before. I swear on my name. Of course, this did not instill fear in the resolute Li Jiakong, who was unperturbed by the prospect of divine retribution. However, Lin Xiaodong's next words struck a chord of dread within him. By the way, I will uncover your lineage. I seldom resort to violence, but a person of your ilk only perpetuates more filth in this world. One day, when I ascend to power, I shall ensure your entire family meets their end. Chapter 194. The Utility of Villains. Lioli. If you encounter anyone trying to capture you again, remember to call for help. Upon hearing Lin Xiaodong's words, Lioli, adorned with a red headband, an unknown girl's handiwork, displayed an astonishing resolve reminiscent of a warrior severing his own wrist. Additionally, Lin Xiaodong had affixed a note to Lioli's head that read, "Personal pet, do not harm." He then lifted Lioli and swung it around by the silken thread tied to its body before releasing it. With an exuberant shriek, Lioli soared toward another building 35 meters away. Like a ball, Lioli flew through the air, eliciting an anxious response from Eiju, who was frantically shaking its ample belly, not wishing to compete for the ball. At that moment, the Soundwave manipulator and the youthful lad, now resembling a battered pig, could only rush to retrieve the ball for their master. Eiju, instinctively clenching its dark pincers, pondered whether it should reward each of them right then. Rumor had it that a certain dim-witted spider would soon arrive to vie for the master's attention, leaving Eiju in a quandary. With 8 large, innocent eyes gazing at Lin Xiaodong, Eiju noticed the encouraging glint in his gaze and felt elated as he patted its head while puffing on a cigar. It was evident that this pleased Eiju, for the master still held a fondness for it. Regardless of Eiju's jealous tendencies, under Lin Xiaodong's keen sight, Lioli precisely landed on the opposite building, hopping about in search of a spot to anchor the silken thread. The note fluttered behind it like a cape, greatly satisfying Lioli. Accompanied by a certain tune from a popular app, Lioli's audacious demeanor would have perfectly encapsulated the moment. Ha ha ha, you can't defeat me. There's no way. I am simply that powerful. Ha ha, you can't catch up with me. La 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 la. Ibe bankishawe. Come at me together. I am not afraid at all. Ha, nobody can match my prowess. La 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 la. It turned out that the purpose of that little green ball was this: entirely the fault of careless hands, for everything that entered the building belonged to him, which only invited calamity upon his entire family. Once the first thread was secured across the way, Lioli began its journey back, dragging the silken cord behind. The clever little creature even fashioned a fisherman's knot on a downspout. Even without Lin Xiaodong's intelligent flying capture or the 3 hands of Li Jiakong, Lioli's presence made the situation far from regrettable. Bounding back along the swaying thread with an ease that no human could replicate, Lioli was naturally adept at tightrope walking. Had it not been for a sudden gust of wind, Liuli would have gracefully approached Lin Chaodong, seeking praise and affection. However, the fierce breeze sent the plump Liuli soaring like a ball into the air. Wow! Eju's 8 large eyes followed the wind-blown Liuli, which was screaming in fright, before it quietly ascended the silk thread. In contrast to Liuli, Eju was far more composed and steady, though its rotund belly may appear rather clumsy. It is indeed a creature born of the internet, and for it, spider silk is akin to a sprawling highway. Observing Eju steadily traverse the silk, onlookers from the building across gazed in astonishment. Securing resources from the adjacent edifice seemed so effortless. Yet not a single soul, be it the dim-witted building management or the famished survivors, could fathom such a simple solution. As the bridge of silk arched into place, with 2 strands poised above and below, one need only muster the courage to hold on tightly, and danger would be but a fleeting thought. Follow me. Lin Chaodong was not one to indulge in pretentiousness, unlike some who, upon acquiring subordinates, felt the need to display their superiority, never one to tempt fate. Lin Chaodong preferred to take matters into his own hands. Securing a safety rope to the upper strand of silk, he placed his foot upon it and gradually maneuvered his way across to the opposing building. On this side, discussions erupted among the group, including Yang Liming, who speculated that with the resources from this building, they would be able to endure until rescue arrived. Life in the city held its own appeal, contemplating a journey to the military base. Yet, regardless of the chatter around her, the girl who had ascended alongside Lin Chaodong, clutching her high heels, instinctively brushed her wine-red hair, her green eyes sparkling with intrigue. Her gaze followed Lin Chaodong's every move, unwilling to waver for a moment. Lin Chaodong remained oblivious to this attention as he produced the universal key crafted by the system, effortlessly unlocking the door that led to the staircase on the rooftop. He mused to himself, had I possessed this contraption on that first night, I need not have suffered so miserably beneath a pile of bills. As he pressed the handle and heard the lock click open, he cautiously listened for any sounds, but upon detecting none, he boldly entered. However, upon stepping into the building, a cacophony erupted, and something lunged at him with ferocity. What the hell? I thought there were no zombies. Despite his internal outcry, his hands moved swiftly, propelled by a 3rd-level speed attack. With a swift motion, he unsheathed the claw blade and cleaved at the chaotic flurry before him. The creatures were agile, yet they could not withstand the swiftness of Lin Chaodong's strikes. Soon, a tempest of blood and carnage ensued, with something crashing to the ground, thrashing desperately. Peering down, Lin Chaodong was taken aback by what he saw, a bat, one with a wingspan nearing a meter. Moreover, he noticed that the stairwell was densely populated with these creatures, causing even the unflappable Lin Chaodong to feel a shiver run down his spine. Awakened by his intrusion, the bats slowly opened their blood-red eyes. Witnessing this spectacle, Lin Chaodong took a step back and commanded, unleashing a sonic wave with a mighty roar. After all, this entity was here to atone, and Lin Chaodong had no interest in knowing its name. In this apocalyptic world, their paths might never cross again. Rather than cling to each other in this dire predicament, it seemed wiser to forget one another in the vastness of existence. Furthermore, given that this individual served as a mere lackey to the Li family, Lin Chaodong held little hope for their character. Upon hearing Lin Chaodong's command to suggest that Sang Jinyu first freeze the enemy, thus preventing those ruffians from erratically soaring about, Lin Chaodong shrugged, indifferent to the order of actions. What truly mattered was to eliminate all the bats within. Sang Jinyu, nursing his injured arm, cast a glance at Lin Chaodong, detecting the embers of hatred flickering in his eyes. However, Lin Chaodong remained unfazed. He relished the peculiar joy of being despised without any means of retaliation against him. Yet, being loathed is an inevitable facet of human existence, a conflict that arises from time to time. Of course, circumstances vary. At the very least, Lin Chaodong would refrain from committing acts that transgress the fundamental boundaries of humanity. Unlike the loathsome Li Jiakong, whose abhorrent abilities manifested as an extra hand, with a tinge of resentment, and while suppressing the pain in his arm, Sang Jinyu conjured a faint mist of ice around his clenched fist before hurling it forth with a flourish. Chapter 195. One must help oneself. The chilling mist was even more frigid than the daytime temperatures. When that figure flicked his hand, the already cold air nearby condensed into a faint, icy fog. However, instead of forming icicles in the air, as it did when attacking Lin Chaodong, the two mists erupted silently a short distance away. The explosion of the icy fog was devoid of sound, yet it seemed to possess a tangible chill, visibly coating nearby objects with a layer of frost that spread rapidly in all directions. The collective assault of the icy mist was a formidable ability. Should I consider compelling this individual to join forces, perhaps to eliminate? The thought barely crossed Lin Chaodong's mind before he nearly slapped himself. I am a man. A man's words, once spoken, should be as immutable as the waste excreted from a body. To suggest they return with a message and then allow them to do so, if they dare to be foolish again, we shall deal with it then. The bats, which had startled Lin Chaodong with their blood-red eyes, were rendered into frost-covered remnants, reminiscent of cured meats hanging in a farmer's abode, upon contact with the icy fog. The blood of these creatures was red, indicating they were bioorganic beasts rather than zombies. Thus their flesh was consumable. This was indeed good news. Considering the number on the rooftop, there would be enough to sustain the survivors below for at least half a month with plenty spare. Simplifying matters was a blessing. As he contemplated this, a sound wave reached the door of the stairwell, issuing a call towards the hanging bats within. Although still inaudible, Lin Chaodong keenly observed the nearly transparent ring of light emanated from his mouth with the sound wave's utterance. Furthermore, the circle did not dissipate. Rather, it rolled forward like a smoke ring. The bats struck by the sound wave fell like raindrops, and the transparent circular sound wave immediately dispersed. From that point on, Lin Chaodong could no longer see, yet he could still sense that the sound waves, akin to actual sound, scattered and redirected upon colliding with physical objects. It turned out that this sound wave ability had such utility. It was indeed a powerful area attack skill. The frozen bats, upon being struck by the sound wave, shattered into brittle, red fragments. Intriguing, though ultimately that was all it was. Observing the scattered remnants in the corridor, Lin Chaodong instructed those outside the building, "You 5. Keep an eye on those two. If they misbehave, eliminate them on the spot. I'm going inside to check if the bats are all gone." With his weapon in hand, Lin Chaodong descended the stairs to the 35th floor. Fortunately, aside from the shattered remains of the bioorganic bats, there were no survivors in the corridor, which brought him a sense of relief. He casually produced his master key and began unlocking the doors one by one, not bothering to inspect the contents of the rooms. After all, compared to the abundant food and vegetables in his community and the massive python lurking below, ordinary sustenance hardly piqued his interest. Having checked the area for danger and finding none, he transmitted orders via radio. 2 individuals with abilities were to guard the stairwell. Any zombies encountered were to be shot on sight. Subsequently, Yang Liming established wireless communication, instructing the daring individuals among them to traverse the spider silk to transport food, reminding them not to forget their safety harnesses. Upon receiving the communication, Yang Liming conveyed Lin Chaodong's intentions to those within the building. Unexpectedly, someone immediately shouted back, questioning why. If he could locate food, he could not bring it to them. To Yang Liming's astonishment, this sentiment resonated with many others. Indeed, he was also an extraordinary individual, remarkably bold, and when he crossed that delicate silk, he exhibited no sign of trepidation. Another man interjected, lamenting their prolonged hunger, asserting that their legs had turned weak. The slender spider silk would undoubtedly lead to a fall. Furthermore, a man, too timid to voice his opinion directly, nudged his partner to speak on his behalf, echoing, "Yes, Judge Yang, that is exceedingly perilous. Besides, he possesses a pet spider. I am aware that such a creature can carry over 200 kilograms. Let it bring the food." Yang Liming found some validity in their arguments. However, the thought of allowing Lin Chaodong to bear the entire burden filled him with an overwhelming sense of shame that he could not articulate. As his words faded, a girl with green eyes and wine-red hair, previously scrutinized by Lin Chaodong, raised her voice in indignation. Should Mr. Lin be responsible for your sustenance? You dare call yourselves men? It would be fitting to cast such ungrateful individuals from the building. Her voice rang clear and bright, echoing across the rooftop. The men who had just spoken turned pale, then flushed, ultimately surrendering with a gesture of resignation, declaring that those with courage should step forward, for they lacked the capability. One suggested, Judge Yang, beseech Mr. Lin, as we owe him a significant debt of gratitude. In the future, Judge Yang, we acknowledge that Mr. Lin shall be the overseer of the building. We shall heed his every word. The girl with wine-red hair trembled with anger, her lips quivering. How dare you even mention the building's management? If it weren't for Mr. Lin's presence today, are you not men? You lacked courage before when there were no guns. Now armed, how can you still be so cowardly? Such impertinence from a mere girl. Adults are conversing, and you have no place to interject, shouted another. Even a woman, once mistreated by the building's management, emerged to say, What, do you not remember? I witnessed 2 men enter your room. 2. She extended her slender fingers, emphasizing her point, seemingly asserting the veracity of her claims. This left Yang Liming in a quandary, particularly with the cacophony of voices muddling his thoughts. Emir Yang, there is an old saying in our hometown. One must help oneself before heaven grants assistance. The words resonated with the clarity of a morning bell, reverberating like thunder from the heavens. Awakening Yang Liming es senses. He bellowed, silence. Are you all so shameless as to bully a girl, especially you? He pointed decisively at the woman who had raised her fingers as if they were flags. She is nothing but a wretched creature. While I was dealing with her security guard husband, whom I had dispatched, she had already adorned herself to pursue another suitor, even as the other remained in tears. From a distance, Lin Xiaodong cupped his hands around his mouth, publicly exposing her disgraceful antics. At that moment, 2 other women had already pounced on her. One scolded, You truly are a harlot, taking such delight even while being forced. The other rebuked, Do you have no shame? Just moments after the previous one has passed. You are already seeking another. You are utterly despicable. In an instant, the 3 women were embroiled in a fierce scuffle. As the other men overheard Lin Xiaodong's taunts from the opposite building, they were taken aback. Not only had he not refrained from mentioning them, but the mockery etched upon his face made the few who had just opened their mouths lower their heads in embarrassment. Yet, the first to speak remained oblivious, babbling foolishly. I say, Judge Yang, surely he is one of our compatriots from the East Kong Republic. Your authority may govern us, but can it not extend to him? Chapter 196. The young woman also plays the victim upon witnessing this scene. Yang Liming could not help but feel a surge of annoyance. He promptly summoned all the surviving individuals from upstairs via radio. Casting a glance at the assorted men and women before him, he cleared his throat and declared, Hear me. All men, except those under 14 and over 60, must proceed to gather food. Moreover, this task is not merely a one-time affair. Can we expect assistance from others for a lifetime? At this juncture, he surveyed the men present and continued with a commanding tone, Mr. Lin has stated that he has only cleared the uppermost layer. We must clear the layers below ourselves. He also mentioned that one must help oneself before heaven will aid them. In my capacity as the Chief Justice of Dun City, I hereby enact the following law. Upon hearing the proclamation a new law, everyone perked up, for the Eastern Kong Republic is a nation governed by law. Furthermore, it adheres to a strict penal code. Hence, public officials who commit crimes face relentless pursuit unless they confess. With an air of authority, Yang Liming announced, Men who do not fulfill their work obligations will be denied food allocations for themselves and their families in the future. Dare you? A man, feeling that this law was directed at him, was the first to object. However, just then, a gunshot reverberated from across the building, and a .44 bullet whizzed past the man's ear. It was not merely to frighten him. Accompanying the bullet was his very ear. You little brat, I support this law. If you keep yapping, the next bullet will send you to the underworld. And you, be the first to step forward. No seatbelts allowed, or I will slaughter your entire family. After demonstrating his prowess with a revolver, he holstered it and bellowed, Judge Yang, we have a saying back home. In chaotic times, strict laws must prevail. Though Yang Liming had never heard this phrase, as a legal scholar, he understood its implications. His gaze hardened, and he addressed the men once more. Very well, I shall enact another law. Those who do not comply with the previous law will be expelled from this building along with their families. This time, before the man could express his derision, his wife had already lunged at him, delivering 2 resounding slaps. Are you even a man? When we were at the management meeting, you claimed there were no weapons. Now that our lives are at stake, you refuse to gather food. Judge Yang, please, I wish to divorce this worthless being. The man, confronted by the disdainful gazes of those around him and the fury of his wife, lowered his head and approached the edge of the building. His wife displayed a look of concern, yet the rest showed no such worry. In their hearts, they believed it would be better for such a coward to perish. They would be quite satisfied if he jumped. Gazing down from the building, he turned to face everyone and suddenly shouted, I realize my mistakes. I shall comply with work assignments from now on, and I will no longer be a coward. With that, he stepped onto the thin wire. As per Lin Xiaodong's request, the auburn-haired young woman, standing with poise, decisively removed her high-heeled shoes and, raising her voice, declared, Ladies, we are in the apocalypse now. As independent women, we should not solely rely on men. We are capable of standing on our own. At her spirited proclamation, the lively women below immediately erupted in animated chatter. I felt dizzy from the commotion and pondered, could they possibly quiet down? The fear crept in, yet the thought of food lingered tantalizingly. If only there were provisions. I observed that the remaining men on our floor were hardly comparable to Mr. Lin. Did he even have a girlfriend? As soon as the words escaped my lips, several women of notable beauty turned their gaze towards Lin Xiaodong, even casting flirtatious looks from across the building. Indeed, in this post-apocalyptic world wrought by a biochemical catastrophe, the prospect of relying on such a courageous man was alluring. However, the young woman's sharp voice swiftly extinguished the fervor of those infatuated ladies. You stand no chance. I was in the restroom when he said he ventured into the building for me and even fought the building management to rescue me. As she recounted her experience in the restroom, her face flushed crimson, prompting the other beautiful women to exchange incredulous glances. Could it be that they had, in the restroom? It was utterly beastly, barbaric, and shameless. How could this little girl be so bold as to make such a public claim? It was outrageous indeed. Yet, almost immediately, they resumed casting flirtatious looks at Lin Xiaodong, hoping that this formidable figure might possess a taste for mature women or perhaps even group encounters. Such matters were likely beyond the ken of the auburn-haired girl. Yet the others, regardless of their flirtations, Lin Xiaodong felt a wave of dizziness wash over him. Being a good person is truly a perilous affair. It feels akin to that famous saying, if you weren't the one who caused the accident, why would you intervene? Clearly, the young woman was merely trying to exploit him. In this world, one fears the elderly attempting to take advantage, but who would expect a young woman to do so? Where has the sense of justice gone? At that moment, the words I had spoken were simply meant to deter her from causing a scene. They shouldn't be taken literally. It is crucial to note that I have a relentless girlfriend at home and a jealous little sister. Even if I were to disregard those thoughts, my heart still belonged to Melanie, stationed at the Air Force Base. Little did I anticipate that the auburn-haired girl, facing the incessantly flirtatious women, raised her chin defiantly and exclaimed, Hey ladies, I'm heading over there right now. And when he leaves today, I will accompany him. So you might as well give up on that notion. With that declaration, she turned to admire Lin Xiaodong with her striking green eyes. The opaque helmet concealed Lin Xiaodong's expression of bitter resignation. The wind swept across the rooftop, unfurling her auburn locks like a stunning banner. As for her gaze, it clearly reflected her triumph over numerous competitors. Following the path of the brash man who had crossed first, who was now howling dramatically from the other side of the building, it was evident. It's not difficult. I made it across without a seat belt. Is there any real man left? Come on, help me move the supplies. As he shouted, the little pony, clad only in socks, trembled as it stepped onto the spider silk. Lin, I'm coming, wait for me. With those words, a beautiful smile curved her red lips. Moreover, what truly startled Lin Xiaodong was that this creature had closed its eyes, relying solely on the sensations of its feet as it cautiously maneuvered forward. My goodness, Are you truly so foolish as to not fear a misstep that could send you plummeting, and yet you don't even wear a safety harness? His inner cries seemed to have startled the wine-red-haired little pony, and then. Chapter 197. The sticky koala, the crimson-haired maiden, resembling a vase, plummeted directly from the silken thread. Lin Xiaodong shut his eyes, resigned to the thought of her fate. This was the 35th floor, after all. A fall from such a height could only result in a gruesome demise. He had no intention of rescuing her. He was no Superman, incapable of flight. Brother Lin. Save me. Upon opening his eyes, he discovered the vase-like girl dangling precariously from a thread, her long legs flailing beneath her. Indeed, her legs were remarkably elongated, just as the internet had claimed, those kind of legs that could be marveled at for an entire year. Hey, hold on tight, don't let go, stop kicking about. I'm coming to your aid. He retrieved a climbing device, securing it to the thread, and slid towards her with remarkable speed. Once above the vase-like girl, he dangled, supported only by a safety rope, stretching his arms downwards. Grip my hand, hold on tight, I genuinely mean it, grasp my hand. To his utter astonishment, she seized his hand and, in an agile manner reminiscent of a monkey, clambered upwards. Not only that, but her long legs wrapped around his waist, while her arms encircled his head, leaving them swaying together from the thread. This spectacle incited a flurry of chatter among the women across from them. Look at that. The little beauty wasn't exaggerating. They were indeed in the restroom. Oh, who would have thought he appreciated this kind of interaction? The difficulty level is rather high. Did you notice how her feet are still entangled? Is she not holding on tightly enough? Beauty. Dear little beauty. Lin Xiaodong and his subordinates had no intention of transporting supplies. As more individuals emerged from the towering structure, they began to clear out the remnants of the bat-like creatures. Observing their exuberance, Lin Xiaodong pondered. After a fortnight of consuming biochemical beast meat, would these individuals develop supernatural abilities? If they did possess such powers, should he consider recruiting a few? Yet, upon further reflection, he questioned the significance of such abilities. With the dual 12.7mm machine guns from the drones he had brought back, even those with powers could be easily reduced to mere remnants. Hey, I'm telling you, it's safe now. You're still clinging to me. Embracing Lin Xiaodong's robust form, the vase-like girl appeared on the verge of slumber, playfully feigning exhaustion. I'm quite willing to be held by you. Can't you allow me to linger a little longer? Lin Xiaodong found himself bewildered by the peculiar thought processes of the women he encountered from the Eastern Republic. One, Melanie, embodied a sanctimonious ideal, while another, Meyer, was nothing short of tease. And then there was this one. What type was she? Regardless of her nature, Lin Xiaodong felt compelled to refrain from taking her home. Otherwise, chaos would surely ensue. Let me clarify. What transpired in the restroom, why say more? You've seen it all. Can you now deny it? Besides, the words you spoke that day were not insignificant. Damn it, you damn it. In this moment of immense embarrassment, Lin Xiaodong was overwhelmed by the urge to curse. Finding himself in complete agreement with the judge's sentiment. It wasn't you who touched her, so why should you support her? I didn't remove your undergarments, so why am I being bound to you? Regarding the girl who clung to him like a koala, Yang Liming found it quite amusing. He approached with a smile to alleviate Lin Xiaodong's predicament. Kylar Novia, at your age, you should. Before Yang could elaborate further, the wine-red-haired little pony that had been clinging to Lin Xiaodong scurried behind him. Fear glimmered in her green eyes as she twisted her waist in a playful manner. Uncle Yang, please don't tell him about my childhood antics, or else. Observing the little pony's demeanor, Yang Liming smiled as if he were introducing a beloved daughter to Lin Xiaodong. This girl is a juvenile delinquent under surveillance. I find her rather charming, so I accepted the responsibility for her. Unconvinced, Lin Xiaodong turned around, struggling to reconcile the rebellious nature commonly associated with juvenile delinquents and the seemingly innocent facade of Kylar Novia, who blushed at the mention of past embarrassments. You might not believe it, but such a beautiful girl could have chosen any path, yet she opted to become a hacker. A hacker? Lin was taken aback. Surely she was a prized asset, far more exceptional than an ordinary programmer. Initially, he pondered how to rid himself of the little pony, but the notion of acquiring a hacker made her an irresistible asset for the research institute. Leave her to me, Mr. Yang, rest assured. Very well. Placing Kylar in the care of such a brave and just person as you, Mr. Lin, offers me great peace of mind. By the way, Mr. Lin, I gather you're interested in purchasing several domestic robots? Before Yang could finish his sentence, the previously bashful Kylar sprang forth like a playful kitten. Hey, Unchule Yang, how could you? Mr. Lin just saved our people on the first floor, and you dare to charge him for a few unclaimed domestic robots? To Lin Xiaodong's astonishment, Kylar's words caused Yang Liming's face to flush. Charging for unclaimed domestic robots indeed seemed somewhat unethical. However, that did not align with Lin Xiaodong's intentions. He was eager to spend more money. No, Mr. Yang, please do not hesitate. Feel free to name your price. Kylar tugged at Lin Xiaodong's sleeve, exclaiming, Hey, are you out of your mind? You clearly don't have to spend any money. Her voice, delicate and insistent, echoed behind him, yet Lin Xiaodong remained undeterred, continuing to signal to Yang Liming. Mr. Yang, I'm unaware of how many domestic robots you have, but I want them all, no matter the cost. This time, it was Yang Liming who stood astonished, unable to comprehend how this seemingly shrewd individual could be so reckless. He licked his lips, hesitatingly responding, Mr. Lin, if you insist, we could sell you all the domestic robots we have. Each unit costs. Kylar pulled at Lin Xiaodong, scrutinizing him from head to toe multiple times. Doubting that he had not sustained a severe injury to his head during the recent skirmish, she felt compelled to speak out, stepping forward to confront Yang Liming. Her hands on her hips and visibly agitated, she exclaimed, Uncle Yang, how can you treat Mr. Lin this way? You must realize he is a citizen of the Empire. Do you wish for others to believe that all of us from the Dongkong Republic are like this? Adjusting her glasses, Yang Liming broke into a radiant smile, which was as bright as the sun. He then mused to himself, in tumultuous times, stringent measures are necessary. How astutely this sentiment is expressed. It seems Mr. Lin's foundation in law could serve as a lesson for me. Chapter 198. The grand finale of the currency planet. Taking a deep breath, Lin Xiaodong awakened from his slumber. It is said that the ability to exhaust a woman to the brink of life and death through prolonged techniques is a coveted skill for many men. However, upon reaching the 10th level, it becomes rather turning to observe the disheveled forms of women sprawled across the bed. He couldn't help but let out a gentle sigh. With his formidable strength and a robust physique at level 10, managing a few women posed no challenge. Even with an increase in numbers, he could easily cope, engaging in intimate encounters with a group of lovely ladies. Conquering their diverse charms, be they seductive or innocent, was indeed a night filled with intoxicating joy. Reflecting on his initial trepidation upon arriving in this world, it all seemed like a mere yesterday. Regardless, all terrifying matters had come to a definitive end. Could he truly return to that blissful, simple existence of an ordinary person? True to his nature, Lin Xiaodong was a tranquil individual. Unless provoked beyond measure, he would not hesitate to annihilate his adversary and their kin. The last to face his wrath was the Zhang family, who had been thoroughly eradicated. As for the zombies, they were nearly extinct under the onslaught of Lin Xiaodong's mechanical rodent army. Having achieved victory on the first day, why fear the 15th? Yet now, with peace having settled, an unsettling sense of apprehension lingered. Immortal and with little to occupy his endless life, he found himself engaged in the same repetitive pursuits. As his mind wandered, his gaze drifted towards the side, landing on the planet Lays. It now appeared as beautiful as Earth. The distinction lay in its intermingling of white and blue hues. Beneath the frosty white surface lay cities, forests, and mountains. Yet the blue and white planet exuded an unparalleled beauty. Currently, the native fleet of the planet was diligently executing his directives, as countless construction vessels worked tirelessly like ants in the distance. Powerful planetary engines emitted long trails of flame into the void, propelling it away from its former orbit. Thus, the seas of Lays would no longer be perpetually ravaged by tempestuous waves. The sea monsters of Domi would no longer draw energy from the tumultuous waters to fortify their city. However, according to Domi, her kin had already relocated to the coastal district of Rain Island. For Lin Xiaodong, the despicable gnome race, and the architects of the bioweapon catastrophe, the lizardmen, had been annihilated. The barren lands remained empty. Who inhabited them mattered little. Awake so early? A slender figure, adorned in a delicate veil, appeared beside Lin Chaodong. This tree spirit, imbued with fragments of his wife's memories, had ultimately chosen the guise of an imperial being influenced by human aesthetics. Indeed, it was merely a facade. Should she desire, she could assume a different form at any time, provided her previous body had perished naturally. Self-destruction and subtle forms of suicide did not count. Turning to face the tree spirit, he noted her perfect proportions, her azure eyes sparkling with faint golden slit pupils. The standard descendant of the imperial human demon clan, with flowing red hair and slightly feral tiger fangs, is indeed a being both beautiful and perilous. Do you admire your own physique? With a sidelong glance at Lin Chaodong, she playfully tucked a strand of her red hair behind her ear and retorted, "Shouldn't that question be posed by me? How annoying. After all, it took me a great effort to complete my consciousness transfer, and you were so impatient. Have you been harboring ill intentions all along?" As she spoke, her delicate teeth grazed her luscious red lips, while her fingers playfully pinched Lin Chaodong's muscular arm. "Are you feeling nostalgic for your tentacles? Did you always intend to become human, or have you simply been green with envy all day?" It's just the memories playing tricks on me. They all revolve around you. Besides, ever since you arrived here, you've been a bad influence, restricting my outings." As she spoke, she instinctively pouted her red lips. Her fingers entwined in her hair, tinged with a hint of jealousy. Her complaints did not embarrass Lin Chaodong. Rather, he inquired, "So, have you located that yellow dwarf star?" "You mean, the one situated between the Perseus arm and the Centaurus arm?" "I found it, but at that time..." Upon hearing Lin Chaodong mention his former homeland, the girl felt a twinge of concern. "I wish I could find time to revisit." Lin Chaodong's murmured thoughts deepened her worry. She dreaded the possibility of him, like on LYSS Star, obliterating an entire faction of people. How could that be? We lack any interstellar jump technology. We should focus on advancing our science. Upon hearing Lin Chaodong's inability to go, she felt a genuine joy. But then Lin Chaodong activated the communicator, revealing Su Feihong. "Are you prepared, Your Majesty? You are quite the sight for sore eyes. What orders do you wish to impart?" I'm feeling a bit." As a young man, not favored by the women of LYSS Star, Su Feihong had yet to encounter a woman who appreciated him. However, Lin Chaodong knew how to address this matter. "You should hasten your research on technology. Once we have jump technology, I will find you a place that you are sure to adore." "Really?" "Indeed. That place is filled with women who are particularly fond of young men. There, you could apply makeup daily, and I assure you that Meyer will never strike you again for it." Su Feihong's eyes shimmered with hope, but he soon furrowed his brow. "Your Majesty, are they all airhead women? Are there no sensible ones? Bah, what about a cross-dressing gentleman?" Ugh. Suddenly, a thought crossed Su Feihong's mind, and he began to retch violently. "Stop it. Trust me, it's not entirely populated by airheads. Just be cautious not to be deceived by them." As the impending battle loomed, the girl embraced Lin Chaodong from behind, resting her lovely face upon his shoulder. "So, does that mean the battle is truly over?" Lin Chaodong patted her hand, replying, "Yes, the zombies have been vanquished, and those who sought to dominate others have been eliminated as well. Life has become rather dreadfully mundane. How about this? You continue with your pancake stand while I carry on delivering my packages. What do you think?" Upon hearing Lin Chaodong mention life in that era, Shiyu couldn't help but smile and replied, "All right, then your delivery service shall be named Royal Express, and my pancake stall will be called Royal Pancakes." Suddenly, Lin Chaodong exclaimed in distress, startling Shiyu, who hurriedly inquired, "What happened? Is there something wrong? This cursed system requires payment. In that apocalyptic world, I could spend money freely, but now in this comfortable life, I am delivering packages. Am I supposed to give customers change as well?" To this, Shiyu, resting her chin on his shoulder, chuckled, "Well, that's your predicament." The end.